Chapter 848. Frozen World. The cold air that had dropped to an unbearable level covered the sky and earth. Sharp icicles rained down on Gu Yongzhan. Gu Yongzhan dodged quickly, as if he was under a rain of arrows. The icicles landed on the buildings in Seven-Star City below, and quickly froze. The thick layers of ice stretched out like luxurious ice sculptures. What a terrifying ice aura! Everyone in Seven-Star City was secretly shocked. The cold air spread out, and it was a cold that went straight into their organs and bones. Bang! Whoosh! While Gu Yongzhan dodged the icicles, the height of the area he was in was also pushed back. Long Xuan was like an ice fairy, looking down from above, cold and elegant like an iceberg. When the last icicle fell, Gu Yongzhan revealed a mocking smile. It's my turn now. Is that so? Long Xuan raised her phoenix eyes slightly, and her slender fingers formed a seal again. But I'm not done yet, what? Gu Yongzhan furrowed his brows. Then, with a cracking sound, the ice-snow city below actually set off a sky-piercing cold air. An ice-blue crystalline iceberg soared into the sky and once again shot towards Gu Yongzhan. The tip of the icicle was extremely sharp, and it was extremely lethal. Gu Yongzhan dodged to the side again, and the icicle almost brushed past his chest. The huge icicle was peerless, and it looked like a small iceberg before Gu Yongzhan could stabilize his mind. Buzz! 2 icicles shot out from 2 other directions, and they attacked Gu Yongzhan from the left and right. Gu Yongzhan snorted lightly. He turned around in the air, and he steadily landed on the first majestic iceberg. However, in the next second, the iceberg beneath Gu Yongzhan's feet actually split open like a man-eating flower. Sharp ice spikes shot out from all directions and merged back towards Gu Yongzhan with the momentum of converging. Whoosh! The latter hurriedly dashed out, and the densely packed icicles that were like sawteeth closed together. Instantly, ice shards flew and blue patterns flew everywhere. Damn it! Gu Yongzhan cursed in a low voice. He had never thought that Long Xuan would be so difficult to deal with. Her attacks came one after another, and they were simply endless. Under the fast-paced attacks, Gu Yong had less offense and more defense, so he could only choose to dodge continuously. Meanwhile, the situation between Luo Mingxiang and Lu Tao had also reached a white-hot stage. The distorted space covered an area of several hundred meters, and the true inner force was constantly being crushed and burst. This area was like a land of death. A pair of holy white wings enveloped Luo Mingxiang, forming an absolute defense against the layers of twisting and tearing force. I'd like to see how long you can last, Lu Tao shouted with a gloomy look. Just as he finished speaking, a wave of air surged out, and the white wings that were protecting Luo Mingxiang suddenly spread outwards. In an instant 10,000 rays of holy light blossomed like a rain of fireworks. Luo Mingxiang was peerless, and a mysterious crescent-shaped spirit tattoo appeared between her eyebrows. An unprecedented majestic force was quietly released from Luo Mingxiang's body. Heaven and earth were overshadowed, and the peerless beauty was like a glimpse of a startled swan, moving people's hearts. Moon Goddess Dance. Luo Mingxiang's red lips opened slightly, and a bright moon quietly rose above the 9 heavens. It was like a dream, real and fake. Swish! Luo Mingxiang stepped on the air, and her beautiful figure corresponded with the bright moon. In an instant, the 9 heavens' bright moon shone brightly, and Luo Mingxiang's long sword danced, and a holy sword pillar that connected heaven and earth slashed down from the sky. Boom! Rumble! The sword light, which seemed to be condensed by the divine moon, was shocking. It penetrated into the distorted space and detonated a thunderous explosion. Waves of air rippled along the sword pillar and swept across the sky, shattering the void-tearing divine power as it slashed towards Lu Tao. Looking at the void-tearing divine power that he was so proud of being shattered layer by layer, Lu Tao's expression had already changed drastically. His eyes were wide open, and his pupils constricted. Horror was written all over his face. Bang! In the next instant, the majestic sword pillar hit Lu Tao squarely. The latter was like a bird shot down by a meteor, directly piercing through the ground and crashing into the city below. Rumble! The earth exploded, and huge waves covered the sky. The terrifying power caused the earth to break apart layer by layer, and billions of gravel flew up like countless locusts that were startled away. Mighty shock waves rolled out in all directions, causing the buildings in the city to collapse and turn into dust. Many people were swept away and could not stand steadily. Everyone in the Seven Stars City was completely dumbfounded, and their hearts were full of shock. Senior brother Lu Tao? The people from the Taiching sect were even more confused, and their faces were full of disbelief. How was this possible? Lu Tao actually lost. He lost to a nameless girl that they had never seen before. Shock surged in everyone's hearts. Especially Haozi, Mu Feng, Yan Hanlu, Wu Yuan, and the others from the Hundred Kingdoms state. They all knew Luo Mengshang's background. She was the young lady of the great Firmament City Luo clan. However, this was only on the surface. Chu Hen's eyes were gentle as he looked at the agile and beautiful figure. Other than surprise, he was more relieved. The power of the sacred body of Abyss was indeed extraordinary. Chu Hen nodded to himself. It seemed that letting Luo Mengshang and the mysterious person leave Mount Kunliu was indeed the right decision. Luo Mengshang had already become so powerful, and he had to work even harder. How could this be? Song Yujie, who was outside the battle, was dumbfounded, and his heart was trembling. Was this really her? The difference? A huge gap that could not be crossed. If the appearance of Chu Hen made Song Yujie feel so useless, then the arrival of Luo Mengshang made Song Yujie feel endless humility and loneliness. Different times, different scenes, the same person, everything was so far apart. Hua! In the midst of the chaos, a disciple of the Taiching sect brought out a figure covered in blood and with a weak aura from a pile of rubble. Go, retreat immediately. He wanted to escape from this place more than ever before. The situation was hopeless, and if the Taiching sect continued to stay here, they would only suffer more casualties. Retreat at full speed. Yulong, let's go. Li Fengqing immediately appeared next to Song Yujie and dragged him away. Song Yujie's eyes were lifeless, and he was like a walking corpse, allowing Li Fengqing to drag him away. The hasty retreat of the Taiching sect was undoubtedly a huge blow to the other people in the Seven-Star City who were besieging Chu Hen. Gu Yongzhan's face did not look good, and it was dark and gloomy. A battle that was supposed to be a sure win had been turned around. How could he not be angry? Boom! Gu Yongzhan, who did not have the upper hand in the first place, was suddenly sandwiched between two sharp icicles. The jagged icicles quickly closed up, and directly sealed off the other party's escape route. Scram! Along with an angry roar, a force that was comparable to the eruption of a volcano suddenly burst out. Bang, bang, bang! Cold air filled the air, and crystal fragments flew everywhere. The two large icicles that had collided with each other broke apart, and a monstrous gray flame rose like fire. Gu Yongzhan's body was surrounded by the shadow of a serpent, as if he was protected by a spiritual beast. He stepped on the air and stared angrily at Long Xuanxuang in front of him. That's enough. Gu Yongzhan, who had been suppressed all this while, was extremely annoyed. His vicious aura stacked up, and his cold eyes were red. His arms that were covered with metal claws froze in the air, and the serpent's shadow danced and rolled around him, and rushed towards Long Xuanxuang in front of him. Wrath of the evil spirit! Roar! The ferocious aura shook the sky, and the vicious aura was shocking. The serpent's shadow attacked in front, and Gu Yongzhan followed closely behind. It seemed like he was going to win with one strike. Buzz! Long Xuanxuang's eyes flashed with a cold light, and an ice-blue longbow appeared in her hands. The longbow was luxurious and beautiful, and its entire body was surrounded by blue shadows. The bowstring was like an illusory light pattern, and once it appeared, it was breathtaking. Mystic Rain Bow, the treasure of the Ice Mystic Sect. How could this be? The Ice Mystic Sect leader actually passed the Mystic Rain Bow to her? Under everyone's surprised gazes, Long Xuanxuang's jade-like fingers drew the bowstring, and without an arrow, a powerful force was quietly released. Countless cold air in the air gathered, and concentrated on the fingertip of Long Xuanxuang's hand, turning into a glowing blue ice arrow. Roar! The serpent's shadow was like an angry dragon, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Long Xuanxuang's beautiful eyes were like snow, and she was abnormally calm. Her hair fluttered in the wind. Swoosh! In an instant, the tip of her finger lightly released, and the blue arrow shot out like a meteor. Its speed was comparable to that of a flying shuttle that was thousands of years old. Tens of thousands of ice mystic energy gathered on the arrow. Under the trembling gazes of countless people, the mystic rain arrow directly pierced the serpent's giant mouth, and through the serpent's abdomen. The arrow came out from the end, dragging a powerful wave of air behind it, and flew towards Gu Yongzhan. What? Hiss! A heavy, earth-shattering explosion reverberated in the sky once again, and an earth-shattering wave of cold air spread in all directions, pouncing on the faces of the people of Seven Star City. As the sky was filled with crystal fragments, a slightly panicked figure quickly retreated. Gu Yongzhan's eyes widened, and he stared at his left arm in shock and anger. The arm covered in black metal claws was completely frozen by a thick layer of ice, and there was a small hole in the middle of the palm of the iron claws, which was especially eye-catching. The ice beauty is really good. My wind and cloud pavilion will not let today's matter go. After saying that, Gu Yongzhan's gaze swept over Chu Hen on the other side, and he immediately moved, turning into a wisp of light and leaping into the sky. The army was defeated like a landslide. Lu Tao's defeat and Gu Yongzhan's surrender immediately caused the morale of the people of Seven Star City to plummet. Mount Kunliu and the Ice Mystic Sect launched a large-scale counterattack, launching a crazy counterattack. Chapter 849. Whoosh! The wind howled, and the cold air was mixed with the pungent smell of blood. Seven Star City quietly became a dead zone. Blood flowed like a river, and corpses were piled up everywhere. Taiqing Sect's Lu Tao and Wind and Cloud Pavilion's Gu Yongzhan were defeated, and the rest were like monkeys after a fallen tree, fleeing in all directions. Mount Kunliu, the mysterious ice sect, launched a large-scale counterattack, and blood flowed for several kilometers. However, Chu Hen had already stopped. Traces of profoundness could be seen in his star-like bright eyes. Looking at the tragic scene, his heart was somewhat moved. The main cause of this chaotic battle was Yan Zhenbei and his group from the Seven Soul Palace. However, Yan Zhenbei and his group had already quietly slipped away when they saw that the situation was not good. In the eyes of Chu Hen, the former royal bloodline was now no different from a despicable and incompetent rat. The only thing that still worried Chu Hen was that the Alcade Star Soul Pearl was still with Yan Zhenbei. After the hasty battle ended, Seven Star City ushered in a unique deathly silence. The people from Mount Kunliu licked their wounds and looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with excitement, relief, and gratitude towards the people from the mysterious ice sect. That was really dangerous. I thought I was going to die here today. Are you kidding me? With me here, you won't die. Haha, that's true. What benefits did you obtain in the Star Secret Realm? Can you share some with us? F*CKU. I don't have enough for myself. A few simple jokes gradually eased the tension in everyone's hearts. Everyone gathered together and looked at Chu Hen. Chu Hen stood at the top of a high platform, looking at Luo Mingshang and Long Xuanxuang in a relaxed manner. There were no words of gratitude, just a look and a smile was enough. I am Lung Lingyan. Thank you for your help just now. As the representative of Mount Kunliu, Lung Lingyan naturally could not be so careless. She stepped forward to express her gratitude. You're welcome. Before anyone could say anything, Mu Feng swaggered over with a generous expression. This is Chu Hen's sister, and this is his old lover. We're all family, so you don't have to thank me. Haha, that's right. I didn't expect to see the two of you here, Haozi said with a smile. Lung Lingyan was slightly taken aback. She could not help but look at Luo Mengchang, secretly sizing her up. At the same time, there seemed to be an undetectable strangeness in her eyes. Indeed, you're welcome. Long Xuanshuang and Luo Mengchang also nodded slightly and introduced themselves simply. Luo Mengchang of Moon Tide City. Long Xuanshuang of the Sacred Star Empire. One was cold and elegant like an iceberg, while the other was elegant and refined. Even Lung Lingyan, who was also a woman, was quite amazed by the aura emanating from the two women. It was no wonder that Chu Hen had always been obsessed with Luo Mengchang. Let's leave this place first. Chu Hen did not want to stay here for long. Moreover, everyone in Mount Kunliu was in urgent need of a place to recuperate. It was not a good place to stay for long. Everyone nodded and immediately prepared to leave. And just as everyone turned around, a strong wave of air stacked up, and everyone's gazes immediately turned towards the same direction, only to see that the Dubhe Tower amongst the 7-star pagodas actually blossomed with a brilliant starlight and holy splendor. Everyone was slightly taken aback. Only then did they realize that among the 7-star pagodas, there was still one person from the secret realm who had yet to come out. If it were not for this, they would have forgotten about it. Swoosh, a solid light beam leaped into the sky, and an exquisite and petite figure appeared in everyone's eyes. When Chu Hen and the others saw it clearly, everyone was stunned again. The person standing at the top of the Dubhe building was actually a little girl about 13 or 14 years old. Her exquisite facial features were like a jade porcelain doll's, and her hair was tied into 2 messy and cute buns. She looked like a little girl who had yet to grow up. It's so comfortable to wake up, the little girl muttered to herself in a coquettish voice. She stretched as if she had just woken up. Soon, she felt that the surroundings seemed to be a little abnormally quiet. When she saw the city filled with corpses and the scarlet blood, her emotions did not seem to fluctuate at all. She only scratched her head and casually said, "Another batch died." Swoosh, as soon as she finished speaking, a beam of light leaped into the sky, and a slight wave of air appeared in the air. The other party instantly disappeared from the sky of 7-Star City. Mount Kunliu, the people from the mysterious ice sect could not help but look at each other. They could all see the astonishment in each other's eyes. After coming to the ancient desolate heaven domain, they had encountered fierce battles and deceptions. Suddenly, a cute little girl who was as cute as a fairy appeared. It was really like a clear spring in a muddy water. But why did she look so calm when she saw the ground full of corpses? Intuition told Chu Hen that this person's background was definitely not simple. 7-Star City, it was best to leave as soon as possible. Dozens of miles away, there was a dense forest, towering mountains, and fog. More than a dozen injured figures with gloomy expressions squatted under a tree, not saying a word. Senior Sister Fengqing. At this moment, an anxious voice broke the silence. Senior Sister, Senior Brother Lu Tao's injuries are extremely serious. If we don't treat him now, he might become a rank 1 cripple. What? As soon as this was said, everyone from the Taiqing sect had a change of expression. Li Fengqing frowned. Is it that serious? His dantian and meridians were heavily injured. His true essence, Violet Palace, must have been greatly injured. We need to leave this place as soon as possible. Damn bastard, and that damned woman. Li Fengqing clenched his fists and cursed angrily. In the Battle of 7-Star City, the Taiqing sect could be said to have suffered heavy losses. A team from one of the top 10 factions had been defeated by a mere Mount Kunliu. This was an absolute humiliation and a laughingstock. Then, Li Fengqing glanced at Song Yujie and scolded angrily. This is all your fault. If you didn't have a grudge with that bastard, we wouldn't have to be involved. If it was any other time, Song Yujie would definitely come over and flatter Li Fengqing. However, Song Yujie acted as if he didn't hear anything. His eyes were lifeless as he leaned against the tree. Seeing him like this, Li Fengqing was even angrier. Why are you acting dumb? Get over here. Song Yujie still didn't move. The rest of the people looked at each other. Li Fengqing couldn't stand it anymore and immediately went forward to pull Song Yujie's clothes. Let's leave quickly. Don't touch me. With a cold voice, Song Yujie flung Li Fengqing away. His eyes were bloodshot. Stay away from me. What's wrong with you? Li Fengqing was shocked. Since they left 7-Star City, Song Yujie hadn't said a word. She just thought that he was sulking. Song Yujie suddenly acted out of character. I'll give you a chance to explain. Li Fengqing said coldly. Explain? Haha, Song Yujie laughed. His laughter was full of sarcasm and contempt. He looked at Li Fengqing with disgust. He never had this kind of disgust before. He pointed at Li Fengqing and laughed. Do you know how disgusted I am by your face? I don't even know how many times I've puked behind your back. Do you really think that I, Song Yujie, would like you? Song Yujie roared. His veins were popping. He threw out all the words that he had been suppressing in his heart. Every time I see your ugly face, I can puke out last night's meal. If your grandfather wasn't the third elder, I would stay as far away from you as possible. Now I've had enough. F***ck off to Taiching sect. I don't want to serve you anymore. Bang! A heavy muffled sound reverberated through the forest, accompanied by a sound that stopped abruptly. Song Yujie was instantly sent flying. The extremely ferocious palm force directly pierced through his chest and back. He fell heavily onto the ground, his body twitching slightly and the life in his eyes quickly dissipated. When he said those words, perhaps this was an unavoidable ending. Perhaps his heart was dead and he only wanted to die. Perhaps the moment he saw Luo Mengshang, it triggered the last bit of dignity in his heart. The former young master Yu, the leader of the 4 young masters, had turned into a weed in the ancient desolate heaven domain. Li Fengqing retracted her palm. Her face was so gloomy that it looked like it was covered with a layer of frost. Throw him to the dogs. The eyes of everyone from Taiching sect trembled, but they could only remain silent. In just a few days, Li Fengqing felt like she had been slapped countless times. At this moment, her hatred towards Chu Hen had increased by a few levels. It was all because of Chu Hen. It's all because of you. I won't let you leave the ancient, desolate heaven domain alive. The moon rose and the dark magpies flew south. In a valley about 30 miles north of 7-Star City, the people from the Ice Mystic sect stopped to rest at Mount Kuan-Lu. Although their injuries were not light, with Hua Shui, the healer, there was no problem. Where are you injured? After treating the people from Mount Kuan-Lu and the Ice Mystic sect, Hua Shui walked over to Wu Yuan, Yen Hanlu, and Xiao Ruoman. No, there's no need. We're fine, Wu Yuan evaded. What? Are you waiting for the new year if you don't treat your injuries? We just don't want to trouble you. What trouble? Didn't Chu Hen tell you to join Mount Kuan-Lu? Since you've joined our sect, you're my junior brothers and sisters. It's fine. Heh. Mu Feng, who was leaning against a tree, grinned. He raised his eyebrows and said, the former king of the 100 Nations Prefecture was defeated when he came to the victorious East Prefecture. Go, don't talk so much. Rat nudged him slightly, indicating that he shouldn't make sarcastic remarks. The sect master of the 1,000 Cranes sect shook his head helplessly and asked, Where's Chu Hen? He's being intimate with his old lover. He probably won't appear tonight. If there's anything, we'll look for him tomorrow morning. Mu Feng narrowed his eyes and placed the pagoda devil sword under his head. He crossed his legs and hummed a tune. Everyone was speechless and disdainful. The moonlight was like frost, and it illuminated the valley. Chu Hen, Luo Mengchang, and Long Xuanshuang stood side by side on a steep mountain wall. It had been almost 6 years since the three of them had gathered together, and they had a lot to say. Chapter 850. Second sister, how have you been all these years? Under the frosty moonlight, Chu Hen, Luo Mingshang, and Long Xuanxuang stood in a group of 3. It had been 6 years since they parted ways in the Hidden Wind region, so they could finally open their hearts to each other. The corner of Long Xuanxuang's mouth rose slightly as she gently shook her head. It was a little difficult at the beginning, but it became smoother later on. I heard from Big Brother that you're the direct disciple of the mysterious Ice sect master? Yes. Long Xuanxuang nodded in affirmation. In the 3rd year of the mysterious Ice sect, Master took me in as a disciple and used the sect's treasure, the 10,000-year frost, to raise the limit of my bloodline to the Ice Profound Body. Oh? Ice Profound Body? Chu Hen's eyes lit up and a look of surprise appeared on his face. He didn't expect the sect leader of the Xianbing sect to value Long Xuanxuang so much. No wonder her cultivation had risen so quickly these few years. Is big sister Xuanxuang going to be the next sect master? Luo Mingshang smiled. Maybe. Long Xuanxuang smiled sweetly. In front of these two, she didn't need to be humble or act like an outsider. She just said whatever she wanted to say. One was the next sect master of the mysterious Ice sect, while the other was the new sect master of Mount Kunli. If this news were to spread back to the 100 Nations province, there would be chaos. Chu Hen and Luo Mingshang couldn't help but look at each other and smile. The former asked again, "Oh right, second sister, where did Big Brother go?" 2 months before the opening of the ancient desolate heaven domain, Chu Hen brought a large amount of resources and treasures back to the Sacred Star Dynasty. From Su Yorong, he found out that Long Qingyang had already left the 100 Nations province. Everything in the Union of Generals was handled by the School of Generals, the School Alliance, and the Runemaster Association. Su Yorong didn't know Long Qingyang's exact whereabouts and only said that he had gone to the mysterious Ice sect to visit Long Xuanxuang. "He came to see me once before," Long Xuanxuang said softly, and her eyes softened. "He left after staying for 2 days. He didn't tell me where he went. He only said that he wanted to travel for a few years and go further." Go further? Chu Hen couldn't help but laugh. He knew Long Qingyang better than anyone else. His heart was as vast as the ocean. As the elder brother, he didn't want to lose to his younger siblings. Dazzling's responsibility to protect the Long family had forced Long Qingyang to stay in the Hidden Wind region. After that, the alliance of generals rose, and the royal family of the Sacred Star Dynasty fell. Once the situation was stabilized, the eagle in Long Qingyang's heart could finally spread its wings. Long Qingyang didn't stay with Long Xuanxuang, nor did he look for Chu Hen. Perhaps he had already left the victorious East State and was far away. Flowers will bloom again, and people will meet again someday. I believe that the next time we meet, Big Brother will definitely give us a surprise. Chu Hen laughed heartily. Long Xuanxuang smiled and nodded. Looking at Chu Hen, who was growing more mature by the day, her life in the Sacred Star Dynasty seemed like it had just happened yesterday. A trace of loneliness and sadness surged in Long Xuanxuang's eyes. Chu Hen knew that she was thinking about Long Zhan again. "I think he's always watching us from above." Chu Hen patted her shoulder lightly. Long Xuanxuang turned around, her eyes slightly red. "All right, I won't stand in the way of your sweet talk." Chu Hen was taken aback. He raised his eyebrows and shrugged with a smile. Luo Mingshang was a little shy, her cheeks blushing. Then, Long Xuanxuang smiled and walked away, leaving the two alone. Once she left, Chu Hen grabbed Luo Mingshang's hand and pulled her into his arms. "What are you doing?" Luo Mingshang was caught off guard. She muttered softly, but did not struggle. Instead, she gently leaned into Chu Hen's arms like a kitten. Like a lonely boat drifting on the sea, she felt a comfortable sense of security when she felt his calm aura. Do you miss me that much?" "Yes." Chu Hen hugged her tightly, the familiar fragrance of her hair wafting into his nose. He whispered in her ear, "Do you know what it means to feel like?" "I know," Luo Mingshang replied, her voice like a drizzle. "I knew it the day I left Mount Kunliu. Love is a tree full of flowers blooming, a lake rippling when the wind blows. The heaviest rain I've ever experienced in the world was when you never looked back under the scorching sun. And the warmest sunshine I've ever received was your faint smile amidst the snow and ice. Being apart for a year felt like 1,000 years. Perhaps only when one really met the person who could make one's heart palpitate would one feel the complicated shackles." Under the moonlight, the two quietly hugged each other. After a while, Chu Hen's emotions finally calmed down. He held onto Luo Mingshang's shoulder, and their eyes met, like ripples on the surface of a green pond. "How have you been for the past year? And what about you? It must have been tough, right?" Luo Mingshang looked at his handsome face that seemed to have been carved with a knife. Behind his affectionate eyes there was a storm. From collecting the heaven and earth mystic yellow token to coming to the ancient desolate heaven domain, Chu Hen could not remember how many times he had been on the brink of death. But as long as Luo Mingshang stood in front of him, everything else was nothing. "Why did you come to the ancient desolate heaven domain? You should have gone to Mount Kunliu to look for me." "I wanted to too. But the distance between the two places is too far. I could only come from another place. Moreover, I snuck out behind Aunt Yu's back." Luo Mingshang replied softly. "Aunt Yu?" Chu Hen was stunned. "That mysterious woman?" Luo Mingshang nodded. "In the past year, Aunt Yu has been helping me improve my cultivation base and strengthen my ninth Hell Saint body." Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly. He was secretly surprised. He had seen Luo Mingshang's rapid growth in strength with his own eyes. In the Battle of Seven Star City, she defeated Lu Tao from the Taiching sect. That was enough to explain everything. However, Chu Hen was still very confused about Aunt Yu's identity. "Then did she tell you about her background and the reason she sent you to the Luo clan in Taishao City?" "Not yet." Luo Mingshang shook her head. There was a hint of confusion between her brows. "Aunt Yu said that with my current strength, the less I know, the better. She'll only tell me everything when I'm able to control the ninth Hell Saint body's power." "Is that so?" Chu Hen frowned. Luo Mingshang raised her jade-like finger and touched Chu Hen's forehead with the tip of her index finger. "All right, don't worry. Aunt Yu treats me very well. I don't think she'll hurt me." When Chu Hen saw her like this, he did not say anything else. After all, Luo Mingshang was a very intelligent woman. If the mysterious person had ulterior motives, with Luo Mingshang's intelligence, it was impossible that she did not notice it. "You said you snuck out? What's going on?" Chu Hen said with a smile. "That's right. And you said it's best not to see you for the time being. She also said that all men are bad," Luo Mingshang said as she pointed at Chu Hen's eyes. "I'm not a good person?" Chu Hen immediately felt a bit awkward. It was most likely because of what happened that night that made that person have a bit of an opinion of him. What should he do? This was too embarrassing. Luo Mingshang continued. "A few months ago, Aunt Yu said she was going to the Great Space State to find medicinal ingredients for me to raise the limit of my bloodline. She asked me to wait for her return. Coincidentally, the ancient desolate heaven domain was about to open. I thought you would definitely come here, so I followed her. On the way, I accidentally met Second Sister, and finally found Seven Star City. So that's how it is." After listening to Luo Mingshang's story, Chu Hen's heart was filled with many emotions. The ancient desolate heaven domain was huge and filled with dangers. It was not easy for Luo Mingshang to come here alone. "What a fool. If I knew you were alone, I would have hoped that you would listen to that woman and obediently stay outside." Chu Hen's eyes revealed a trace of reproach. After all, the ancient desolate heaven domain was too dangerous. If anything happened to her, it would be a lifetime of regret. However, Luo Mingshang smiled smartly. but I found you. Actually, what she wanted to say was that it was because the ancient desolate heaven domain was too dangerous that she came here. When we were separated, I knew very well whether it was raining or not. However, I was helpless because I couldn't hold up an umbrella for you. So I came. The bright moonlight shone on the two of them, forming a pair of oblique shadows on the ground. Then, the oblique shadows slowly approached each other and snuggled together. Chu Hen slightly lowered his head. Their eyebrows touched, and the tip of their noses touched. They quietly felt each other's aura. At this moment, a series of slightly hurried footsteps approached them. Lung Lingyan's voice paused for a moment before she hurriedly turned around. I'm sorry that. I'm fine. You guys can continue. After saying that, Lung Lingyan hurriedly left. The disturbed Chu Hen and Luo Mengshang looked at each other and smiled. After separating, Chu Hen shouted, Senior Sister Lingyan, why are you in such a hurry? What's the matter? Lung Lingyan stopped in her tracks and looked at the two apologetically. After she calmed down slightly, her expression became serious again. There's news from Innocence Valley. What? Chapter 851. There's news about Innocence Valley. What? Chu Hen's pupils constricted when he heard Lung Lingyan's words. Invisible waves of air uncontrollably spread out, sweeping up the dust and sand on the ground. Luo Mengshang looked confused. What was the reason for Innocence Valley? Why would Chu Hen's emotions fluctuate so much when he heard these words? Where are they now? Chu Hen asked in a low voice. After leaving the immortal prying platform, Chu Hen had asked Lung Lingyan to send a message to the main group at Mount Kunliu and asked Wen Liang, the Devil Slayer Hall Master, to send people to search for Innocence Valley's whereabouts. He did not think that there would be news so quickly. This really made Chu Hen a little surprised. Lung Lingyan nodded slightly. Then, she raised her wrist, and a white butterfly flew out of her palm. At a glance, this butterfly was not much different from an ordinary insect. However, upon closer inspection, the butterfly's body was faintly illusory and transparent. In other words, it was not a physical body. Chu Hen recognized that this was the unique communication method of Mount Kunliu. Even if it was intercepted by others, it would be impossible to read the internal information without activating the hand seal. Lung Lingyan's fingers moved and formed dozens of complicated hand seals. When the last hand seal was completed, Lung Lingyan shouted softly, "Activate." In an instant, a dull wave of air rippled in the air. The butterfly directly shattered and turned into beautiful crystal fragments. The crystal fragments danced in front of the three of them, and then a few large words appeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Innocence Valley, Great Dao Cliff. Great Dao Cliff? Chu Hen tightly stared at those few words, and his brows quietly wrinkled. What is this place? I know where it is. Lung Lingyan replied without hesitation. Before the ancient desolation heaven territory opened, Mount Kunliu had collected a lot of precious information about this place. Among them was the information about the Great Dao Cliff. The Great Dao Cliff is a very ancient and mysterious ruin. It's said that very few people set foot there during the previous times the ancient desolation heaven territory opened. Very few people know what kind of power exists there. However, I know the approximate location. Lung Lingyan replied honestly. Without any hesitation, Chu Hen thought for a moment and said, "Gather everyone." All right. Lung Lingyan agreed immediately. Although Luo Mengchang was full of doubts, she was not in a hurry to ask. From Chu Hen's expression, it was enough to show the seriousness of this matter. It wouldn't be too late to understand the specific situation after all the arrangements were made. Peepa! The bonfire crackled as it burned the withered branches. The sound of hurried footsteps instantly caused everyone in Mount Kunliu and the mysterious ice sect to feel tired. They opened their eyes one after another with cautious expressions on their faces. What happened? Seeing Chu Hen's serious face, Haozi immediately stood up and asked. Mu Feng, Qi Zhang, Dan Zhen and the others also came forward. On the other side, Long Xuanxuang also walked in front of Chu Hen and looked at Luo Mengqiang with her phoenix eyes, asking her. Luo Mengqiang just shook her head, indicating that she did not know. What's the matter? Long Xuanxuang asked. Chu Hen's eyelids lifted slightly, and two cold rays shot out. I found the location of Innocence Valley. What? Wu Shaozi, Danjun, Su Lang, Fu Qin, Hua Shui and the others all clenched their fists, their eyes trembling. The others were even more confused. What was the involvement of Innocence Valley? Then what are we waiting for? Let's go now. Hua Shui said hurriedly. Don't rush. Let's wait for Chu Hen to finish. Haozi raised his hand, his expression also solemn. Only the people who had accompanied Chu Hen to collect the heaven and earth mystic yellow tokens knew about this matter. They also understood that Chu Hen was more anxious than anyone else. Chu Hen looked at Long Xuanxuang and Leng Lingyan and said in a low voice, "A friend of mine is in the hands of Shintuitian. We must go and rescue her as soon as possible." There was no time to explain everything in detail, so he could only give a simple summary. Who is it? Long Xuanxuang's red lips parted slightly as she asked solemnly. Little Yao. It's her? The moment he said that, Long Xuanxuang was surprised once more. She couldn't be more familiar with Yi Yao. They were both from Saint Star Dynasty Lin Xing City, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they grew up together. Yi Yao was different from her sister, Yi Yu. She was kind and pure, especially towards Chu Hen. She had the most sincere reliance and admiration. And Chu Hen also treated her as a younger sister. She was definitely a very important person. But shouldn't Yi Yao be in the 100 Nations state? When did she come to the victorious East State, and why was she in the hands of Innocence Valley? Time was of the essence, so Long Xuanxuang didn't continue asking about the reason. Instead, she said directly, "I'll accompany you." Chu Hen naturally wouldn't refuse. Innocence Valley's strength was clear for all to see. It would be difficult for Mount Kunlia's team to contend against them alone. Furthermore, he didn't have the time to ask for reinforcements from the devil-slaying Hall Master, so he could only rely on the mysterious Ice Sect's strength. I will remember everyone's kindness. In the future, if there is any need, Chu Hen will definitely do his best. Chu Hen cupped his fists and said to the mysterious Ice Sect's experts behind Long Xuanxuang, "Sect leader Chu Hen, you are treating us as outsiders." A young man with a steady temperament stepped forward and bowed. One of the young men with a steady temperament stepped forward and returned the greeting. "You are a relative of senior Sister Long. We have no complaints if we are able to lend a hand." "Many thanks." Chu Hen nodded gratefully. Then Chu Hen said to the people from Mount Kunliu, "Those who can't participate in the battle, stay." Everyone's gaze swept over Wu Yuan, Yan Hanlu, and the others. Because their cultivation levels weren't high enough, their injuries healed rather slowly. If an intense battle broke out, the result would be obvious. "Let us go as well," Wu Yuan said solemnly. "Are you kidding me? Stay here obediently. Kings." Mu Feng narrowed his eyes and laughed lightly. "This isn't the time to show off. In a battle of life and death, no one will care about you." Although Mu Feng's words were direct, they were also true. Wu Yuan and the others didn't insist. Many times, in the face of strength, there was no need to throw away your life. This is the route map to Heavenly River City. Our Mount Kunlia has disciples stationed there. Go and meet up with them. Leng Lingyan took out a map scroll and handed it to Wu Yuan. Letting them go to Mount Kunlia's main team first was the most appropriate arrangement. Wu Yuan grasped the scroll firmly in his hand, then said in a powerful voice, "I hope that in the next battle we will be there." Everyone was slightly startled. There seemed to be flames dancing in Wu Yuan's eyes. The Thousand Crane Sect's sect leader, Qi Zhang, let out a deep breath and patted Wu Yuan's shoulder earnestly. "Go. There is still a long way to go in the martial Tao." Wu Yuan, Yan Hanlu, and the others immediately left. As he watched them disappear into the night, Chu Hen's eyes flashed with emotion. There was no lack of geniuses in this world, and those who only appeared for a short time were even fewer. In that moment of absent-mindedness, a domineering aura surged between Chu Hen's brows. Chapter 852. Swoosh swoosh. He flew straight down and sped all the way. Under the stars and the moon, Chu Hen's gaze was cold as he pointed his sword at the great Dao cliff with the people from Mount Kunliu and the Ice Xian sect. One after another, swift and fierce figures swept across the sky, trying their best to increase their speed to the maximum. Whether it was the experts from Mount Kunliu or the Ice Xian sect, all of them had serious expressions on their faces, because their opponent this time was the young Valley Master of Innocence Valley, Shintu Etienne. Apart from Innocence Valley, which was ranked in the top 10 in the Eastern Victory State, Shintu Etienne was a rather impressive person. This person was extremely shrewd, and good at setting up traps. Outsiders had very high evaluations of Shintu Etienne. If Lu Tao and Gu Yongzhan were brave and invincible generals, then Shintu Etienne was a strategist with both pen and sword. He had great control, and very few people were willing to offend him. Have you ever fought with Shintu Etienne before? Everyone flew through the air, and the wind howled in their ears. Lung Lingyan stood on Chu Hen's right and asked in a low voice. No. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold as he answered indifferently, when I was searching for the heaven and earth mystic yellow token, I fought with a man called Kuang Xiong. That's one of Shintu Etienne's 4 trusted guards. Everyone knew that Shintu Etienne had 4 trusted guards: Kuang Xiong, Xieling, Xuechen, and Green Snake. Each of these 4 people had their own strengths, and they were all dangerous people who were difficult to deal with. However, the most terrifying person was still their master. Why is Shintu Etienne targeting Little Yao? Long Xuanxuang couldn't help but ask this question in the end. Luo Mengchang, Lung Lingyan, and the others all subconsciously looked at Chu Hen. A trace of coldness flashed through Chu Hen's eyes as he spat out a few words coldly. Seize the bloodline boundary, oh? Long Xuanxuang couldn't help but be slightly surprised. She'd heard a little about Shintu Etienne. The bloodline boundary of Innocence Valley's wedding cloak profound physique possessed the ability to seize the bloodline boundary of another and use it for himself. For example, Valley Master Shintu Changkong's illusory sky profound body was something that he had plundered from others. But what puzzled Long Xuanxuang was that Yi Yao and she were both from Blazing Rain City, and they'd grown up together. It seemed like the strongest bloodline of the Yi family's ancestor was merely the lunar battle physique. With Shintu Etienne's vision, how could he possibly take a fancy to a battle physique? Could it be, profound body, Little Yao's bloodline has mutated, yin-yang profound body? This simple sentence instantly dispelled Long Xuanxuang's confusion. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes and murmured, maybe it will be upgraded to whoosh. A shapeless coldness silently suffused the surroundings. So long as he thought about how Shintu Etienne had used the soul parting powder to control Yi Yao's mind and fed her a large amount of heaven tribulation pills to stimulate the potential of the yin-yang profound body, killing intent arose in Chu Hen's heart. Looking at Chu Hen's face that was covered in frost, Luo Mengchang indicated to Long Xuanxuang that there was no need to ask any further. How was the situation at the Great Dao Cliff now? Was Yi Yao safe and sound? Everything was unknown, and asking too much would only make Chu Hen feel even more anxious in his heart. Lung Lingyan lightly heaved a sigh of relief. Shintu Etienne is extremely difficult to deal with. We must be careful again and again. Humph! A wisp of a slightly ruthless arc appeared on the corners of Chu Hen's mouth, and his deep gaze looked towards the halo of dawn that was gradually piercing through the layer of clouds. His gaze was like an arrow that was filled with ruthlessness. No matter how difficult he is to deal with, I still want to skin him alive. They hurried on without stopping, and in the blink of an eye, 6 days had passed. Relying on the medicinal pills and grains that Hua Shui provided to replenish their exhausted energy, The crowd did not close their eyes and followed closely behind Chu Hen without saying a word. Swoosh! When the dawn of the seventh day arrived, the bright morning sunlight dyed the horizon golden. The multicolored light first shone on Chu Hen's face. The distinct outline of his face had a kind of enchanting demeanor. "We've arrived at the great Dao cliff." Lung Lingyan's words were like a cardiac stimulant, causing everyone's heart to tremble immediately, followed closely by a great deal of seriousness and solemnity. The great Dao cliff. It was an extremely ancient and mysterious place in the ancient desolate heaven domain. Not many people set foot in it, and there was very little information about this place. At a glance, what appeared before everyone's eyes were mountains and boulders that towered into the clouds, piercing straight into the sky. Countless cliffs were extremely abrupt, as if they were split open by a sharp sword. They were so deep that they could not see the bottom. It was like a prison that imprisoned ancient ferocious beasts, and also like an abyss that led to hell. However, in this place full of cliffs there were strange and ancient architectural sculptures. Some of the buildings were straight up to the sky, with a platform at the top like an ancient castle. Some were narrow at the top and wide at the bottom, with a sharp tip at the top, and a square triangular pyramid at the bottom. The morning sunlight sprinkled down like a dense fairy mist. The many strange and peculiar buildings gave people an indescribable sense of awe. It was as if these buildings were left behind by the ancient saints, which made people stay away from them in awe. Swoosh! Without any hesitation or pause, Chu Hen took the lead and stepped into the great Dao cliff. The crowd followed closely and went straight into the inner region. The great Dao cliff was filled with strange rocks, and there were many natural moats. There were countless giant ravines that crossed from east to west, from north to south, and they were mysterious and unpredictable, as if a dragon was entrenched there. The deeper they went, the more strange and ancient buildings they saw. There was a dock built by the river, and an extraordinary ancient tower. They couldn't help but wonder what was hidden here. "Stop in front!" Chu Hen's sudden order caused everyone to be startled. Before they could ask anything, Chu Hen had already taken the lead and landed on a mountain peak in front of them. "What's wrong?" asked Long Xuanxuang. "Everyone, rest and recover your primordial essence first. Even an Iron Man would not be able to endure 7 consecutive days of non-stop travel." Although Chu Hen was anxious, he did not lose his rationality. In this state, if he fought with Wuang Valley head-on, he would definitely be at a great disadvantage. 4 hours, said Chu Hen. Everyone immediately understood and nodded solemnly. They sat down cross-legged and began to recover their primordial essence. Nongqi. Yes. Go and investigate the situation in front. It would be best if you can find people from Wuang Valley, but remember not to alert them. Nongqi had extraordinary senses. She could sense the aura fluctuations of others from miles away, so it was most appropriate to send her to investigate. I understand. Nongqi agreed without hesitation. Haozi walked forward and said, Mu Feng and I will go with you. Chu Hen nodded. That's good. Thanks to the powerful power in the Star Mystic realm, Haozi and Mu Feng now had extremely strong combat power. With the two of them accompanying them, they could ensure Nongqi's safety. Mu Feng glanced sideways, his eyes full of disdain. He muttered softly, If you want to go, just go. Why do you have to drag me along? Damn it, cut the crap. The situation is urgent. In the future, just ask Chu Hen for some compensation. Haozi forcibly dragged Mu Feng away and stood beside Nongqi to protect her. The three of them transformed into a beam of light and disappeared into the horizon. Chapter 853. Great Dao Cliff. Little Yao, where are you now? At the peak of the mountain, the cold wind was blowing. On Mount Kuan-Lu, everyone from the profound ice mansion was sitting on the ground, resting and recovering the physical and mental energy they had used up in the past 7 days. Only Chu Hen found it hard to calm down. He stood alone on the edge of the cliff, looking at the mysterious cliff in front of him that seemed to be shrouded in mist. To be honest, he should have looked for news of Innocence Valley on the first day he entered the ancient desolate heaven domain. But at that time, they were ambushed by the blood-refining hall, and Mount Kuan-Lu almost couldn't protect itself. Coupled with the many guests, it was already very fast for them to find the location of Innocence Valley. He could only hope that Yi Yao could deal with Shintu Etian and delay him until he found them. Great Dao Cliff, Chu Hen muttered to himself. When he heard these 3 words for the first time, Chu Hen immediately thought of the Great Dao Divine Stone, the mysterious treasure. In the ancient times, there was a powerful person who gathered the power of the universe and used heaven and earth as a furnace to refine the supreme divine item, the Great Dao Divine Stone. Those who practiced the Great Dao could move the stars, avoid death and prolong life, manipulate the universe and everything. The Great Dao Divine Stone had the power to control the sun and moon, stabilize yin and yang, suppress evil spirits, and fuse heaven and earth with everything. There were 2 fragments of the Great Dao Divine Stone in Chu Hen's True Yuan Violet Palace. One of them was left by Yi Yao. Shintu Etian spent so many years meticulously planning this, and his ultimate goal was to let Yi Yao's yin-yang profound body evolve into a saint body, and then use the power of the wedding dress bloodline to steal it. But how could it be easy to complete the step of evolving a saint body? No one knew what method Shintu Etian would use to achieve this plan. As for whether or not it was related to the Great Dao Divine Stone, that was only a guess. Just as Chu Hen was feeling annoyed, a soft and boneless little hand lightly grasped his palm. Chu Hen was startled. He turned his body to look, and what entered his eyes was Luo Mengshang's beautiful and moving face. "You should have a good rest, your eyes are a little bloodshot," Luo Mengchang called softly, and the fingertips of her other hand slid across Chu Hen's cheek. It was like a gentle breeze on a sunny day in an ancient city, cool and moving. The waves in Chu Hen's heart quietly calmed down. "I understand. I'm just a little worried. You should believe in little Yao. I think she will definitely delay until we find her. You, on the other hand, if you don't maintain your best condition, everything you've done before will be in vain. You should rest. I'll wait here for Haozi's news." And Chu Hen nodded, a hint of gentleness between his brows. "It's great to have you here. I hope you'll be by my side for the rest of my life." Luo Mengshang also smiled. Her beautiful smile was like a white pear flower. She patted Chu Hen's shoulder lightly and watched him sit down. She closed her eyes and adjusted his breathing. Then, she silently said in her heart, "All right?" Once he settled his mind, fatigue came especially quickly. Chu Hen immediately entered into a meditative state. His consciousness entered the purple palace of true origin, where a lot of energy was gathered. In the sky, 7 stars were arranged in a dipper shape, shining brightly and shining with a dazzling holy light. He was still 3 star beads away from the complete 7-star soul beads. Now, only the last layer of the 7-star scripture, the Dubhe chapter, had not been cultivated. The minimum requirement was to be at the 7th level of the Earth Profound Realm. Chu Hen tried to secretly circulate the Dubhe chapter cultivation method. An unending stream of true essence flowed through all the major meridians in his body. In just an instant, he had completed a full circulation. It was surprisingly smooth. Chu Hen's heart was endlessly shocked. One must know that the cultivation of the first 6 chapters were each more difficult than the last. But what made people feel even more surprised was that the 7th chapter, which was the highest level, was instead as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. Soon, Chu Hen understood that this was most likely because of the soul of the 7 stars. After obtaining the soul of the 7 stars, he could clearly and intensely feel the power of the stars above the 9 heavens. Naturally, his cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. 1. Traces of obscure rhythm surged out from within Chu Hen's body. silver holy splendor that faintly seeped into the thin gauze attached to and spat out of his body. Luo Mingxiang quietly guarded beside Chu Hen. Her clear eyes looked at the outline of his face, as if she was guarding the love of her life. I hope that there is someone like you, regardless of time, fearless of wind and rain. As long as it's you in the end, it's fine. Time passed minute by minute and second by second. When there was only a quarter left before the 4 hours were up, a few hurried wind-breaking sounds made Chu Hen, Long Xuanshuang, Lung Lingyan, and the others open their eyes suddenly. Wow! The silver starlight attached to Chu Hen's body was like a circle of water ripples, surging and blooming. He stood up with the others, and his bright eyes looked directly at the 3 figures that flashed down. After nearly 4 hours of investigation, Haozi, Mu Feng, and Nongqi looked slightly solemn. What's the situation? Chu Hen went straight to the point. He did not want to waste a moment. We found a rather strange place, but we can't be 100% sure that Innocence Valley is there, Nongqi said. If the information is correct, I think it should be, Haozi added. He first glanced at Lung Lingyan, then said, We expanded the search area towards the 2 wings, and there is only one place with aura flow. In an instant, lightning seemed to flash in Chu Hen's eyes. He said to Haozi and the others, Rest for an hour before we set off. What's there to rest for? Let's get started. Mu Feng raised his demon sword and waved it twice. He did not look tired at all. Haozi was also full of energy. Only Nongqi looked a little tired. After all, the 2 of them had stayed in the Star Tower mystic realm for a few days. Coupled with their higher cultivation levels, their stamina was incomparable to Nongqi's. I'm fine too. Even so, Nongqi still said there was no need to delay. After all, everyone knew how anxious Chu Hen was right now. Chu Hen did not insist. His eyes were like torches as he swept his gaze across everyone. Let's go. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. In an instant, everyone was like a sharp sword piercing into the belly of the great Dao cliff. Their auras were monstrous, and they moved across the void. Under Nongqi's guidance, the group crossed one precipitous mountain after another, and crossed over one bottomless abyss after another. Finally, a majestic and imposing natural chasm appeared before everyone's eyes. The natural chasm ran straight ahead, like a line connecting to the sky. The mountains on both sides were extremely steep, as if they had been cut by a knife. The majestic aura was like a giant guarding the place. However, in the sky above the heavenly chasm, there was actually a sky screen. Chapter 854. What's that? Buzz, looking at the gigantic sky screen blocking the sky above the natural chasm, the people of Mount Kuan-Lu and the mysterious ice sect stopped in their tracks. They followed Chu Hen, Long Xuanshuang, Luo Mingxiang and the others and landed on a mountain peak. The vast sky was like a sea market, and it was like the Milky Way that stretched across the east and west. It exuded a majestic aura like an iron wall, causing people to shrink back and feel fear. It's a barrier. Long Xuanshuang's eyes focused and said coldly. Looks like someone sealed this place. Was it done by people from Innocence Valley? Suddenly, right at this moment, numerous icy cold auras surged out. I was wondering who had such a grand entrance. So it's that little brother from Mount Kunlun. It's been a long time, hee. Her silvery bell-like laughter had a kind of charm that could make one's heart go numb. Then, a colorful giant python coiled around the top of a mountain in front of them like a coiling dragon. Everyone's expression changed slightly, revealing a look of surprise. It's the Heavenly Serpent Clan. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. It's you. The multicolored python also laughed with a chi-chi sound. Its vertical pupils stared at Chu Hen with great interest. So little brother still remembers big sister. It's really an honor. Whoosh. Then, the colorful python turned into a shadow. At the same time, its huge body shrank rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a seductive young woman. Her colorful dress was sexy and seductive, and her dark green eyes were strange and filled with a dangerous aura. Hiss! Immediately after, huge snakes rapidly flashed behind the enchanting woman. The vicious snakes entrenched themselves. Such a scene would cause one's back to feel a faint numbness. "Humph, it's you, you damned bastard!" A voice filled with hatred rang out, and a gust of cold wind blew past. A blurry figure flashed past, and a one-armed man appeared beside the seductive woman. "It's Qi Lianchong," Danjun said casually. In addition to Chu Hen, it was not the first time Danjun, Haozi, Fu Qin, Hua Shui, and the others had seen these two people. Back when he was collecting the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow tokens, he had fought a fierce battle with the Heavenly Serpent clan's Qi Lianchong at the Wind-Soaring Origin. At that time, there was also an expert from the Fong clan who had formed an alliance with Qi Lianchong. After Chu Hen killed the Liao expert, Haozi's unexpected appearance caused Qi Lianchong to retreat. Later, outside of Zhulu City, the team led by Danjun had a fierce battle with the team of the Blood Refining Hall. Qi Lianchong appeared quietly with this colorful giant snake. At the critical moment, Chu Hen arrived in time, and Danjun and the others survived. After exchanging blows, Chu Hen crushed Qi Lianchong's arm with a single sword strike. The rainbow-colored python did not linger, and it left with Qi Lianchong. Chu Hen more or less had some impression of that colorful female snake. However, what surprised everyone was that they would meet at the Great Dao Cliff today. Moreover, there were so many people from the Heavenly Snake clan here. Although Qi Lianchong's face is filled with fierceness as he stared at Chu Hen, the seductive serpent woman is still smiling. Meeting each other is fate. Big sister is called Lan No. I wonder what is little brother's great name? Chu Hen. Chu Hen replied indifferently. Good name. Lan Nua covered her mouth and chuckled. She was very seductive. May I know why little brother Chu Hen is here? I want to see if I can be of help. After a while, Lan Nua became close to Chu Hen. Qi Lianchong could not help but feel angry. However, he knew how scary Lan Nua was, so he did not dare to say anything. Lan Nua's seductiveness was irresistible to most men in the world. However, in terms of appearance, she was inferior to Luo Mengshang, Long Xuanshuang, and Leng Lingyan. From Chu Hen's point of view, her charm would not have much of an effect. Roar! Snake woman, you're too slow. Who are you? Get out of here immediately. Accompanied by a tiger-like roar, a burly figure with a fierce aura suddenly jumped out from behind a huge mountain. He somersaulted in the air and landed heavily on a mountain in front of him. Boom! The earth shook and the mountains trembled. Deep cracks quickly spread under the man's feet. They were winding and rugged, reaching halfway up the mountain. Following that, dozens of figures with strong and fierce auras appeared. They stood on one side of the Heavenly Snake clan, guarding the two sides of the chasm. What a strong and fierce aura! The people from the mysterious ice sect could not help but frown. They saw that this group of people was tall and sturdy. They were 2 to 3 meters tall, like small giants. Apart from that, they had a lot of hair on their bodies, especially on their faces. They looked like ferocious tigers. The person in the lead was nearly 4 meters tall. His long golden hair was draped behind his head, and there were colorful stripes on his forehead. He looked very fierce. It's the Tiger-Striped clan. A mysterious ice sect's disciple said in a deep voice. Tiger-Striped clan? The people behind Chu Hen had a solemn expression on their faces. Similar to the Heavenly Snake clan, the Tiger-Striped clan was a special and powerful clan in the Eastern Victory State. As the name suggested, the Tiger-Striped clan was different from ordinary people. They had a bloodline that was closer to fierce beasts. The Tiger-Striped clan was born with great strength, and they were brave and loved to fight. The lethality of their physical bodies was not any weaker than the Liao clan. Both clans were clans that loved to kill. Heavenly Snake clan and Tiger-Striped clan. The experts of the two tribes were guarding the two sides of the road. This was definitely a very rare sight. Furthermore, there were only a handful of people in the Eastern Victory region who could make these two tribes work for them. In particular, apart from the protectors, there was also a powerful barrier in the sky separating them. What was behind them? It made people even more curious. Hee. Big Brother Nuya, don't be angry. This is a rising star from Mount Koanlu. I know him. Lan Nua did not know what she was thinking. She smiled charmingly. I wonder why you're here at the Great Dao Cliff? I'm looking for someone. Faced with the fierce aura of the two clans, Chu Hen's eyes showed only a hint of surprise. His voice was still calm. Lamia Lan Nua was slightly surprised. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. Who are you looking for? Wu Wang Valley. Shentu E Tian. Shentu E Tian. The cold words came out of Chu Hen's mouth without any pause. They were like sharp swords that pierced the eardrums. Hua, as soon as he finished speaking, a gust of cold wind swept through the area, and the stones and sand on the ground flew up. Nuya and the others from the tiger-striped clan were aggressive. Their hair stood on end, and their faces were filled with killing intent. Regarding the Heavenly Snake clan's colorful Lamia, this character has only appeared once before. If you've forgotten, you can look back at the previous chapters. They are Chapter 722, Chaotic Slaughter, and Chapter 723, Sword of the Sect Leader. Chapter 855. I'm looking for Shintu Etienne. Whoosh! An ice-cold ferocious aura swept across the entire area as soon as Chu Hen finished speaking. In an instant, everyone from the Tiger Stripe clan felt their hair stand on end. Their eyes were cold and filled with hostility. Scram as far as you can before I start a massacre. Nuya's eyes were scarlet and his fangs were exposed. He was like an enraged tiger. On the other side, Lan Nua from the Heavenly Serpent clan was also surprised. She was surprised by Chu Hen's purpose. Looking at the emotional changes of the people from the Tiger Stripe clan and the Heavenly Serpent clan, Chu Hen was almost certain that the people from Innocence Valley were in the area behind them. It seemed like he had found the right place. It was also called Mount Kunliu. The people from the mysterious ice sect became even more cautious. Shintu Etienne had actually ordered the experts from these two clans to act as guards. In the eyes of outsiders, this was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. However, it was extremely terrifying when one thought about it carefully. This was sufficient to show that Shintu Etienne was absolutely brewing an extremely shocking scheme. Extremely cautious. Extremely cautious. Shintu Etienne definitely didn't want anyone to disturb him. That was why he made such a big move. Chu Hen's eyes unconsciously filled with traces of frost. Today, no matter who it was, no one would be able to stop his determination to save Yi Yao. Get out of the way. Humph, how arrogant. I'd like to see what kind of storm a mere Mount Kunliu can cause. Nuya didn't give in at all. His face was filled with disdain. Wait, Lan Nua from the Heavenly Serpent clan stopped Nuya. She smiled at Chu Hen and said, Hee hee. I say, little brother Chu Hen, it's better for you to listen to me. Leave this place as soon as possible. Look at the barrier behind us. As Lan Nua spoke, she turned her body sideways and raised her thumb and middle finger. Then, she pointed at the barrier that was like a layer of light screen of the Milky Way. I won't hide it from you. This dark flame barrier took young Master Shintu nearly a month to complete. Calling it an impenetrable wall is too much. Not to mention you guys, even a profound sky realm expert might not be able to break it in a short period of time. Dark flame barrier? On Mount Kunliu, many people from the mysterious ice sect were secretly shocked. Heh! Mu Feng walked out with the Buddha demon sword on his shoulder. He slanted his eyes and teased, Are you trying to scare me? Is he really that powerful? Lan Nua smiled charmingly. If you don't believe me, you can try. I'll give it a try. Mu Feng wasn't careless. He stomped on the ground and soared into the sky, and a strand of boundless fiendish devil chi surged out, causing the temperature of the airflow in the heavens and the earth to plummet, and a blue light surged out in all directions like a tide. Soon after, surging demonic aura covered Mu Feng's demonic sword like ghost flames. His body moved, and he charged towards the sky in front of him. His arms raised the demonic sword high up, and he swung it towards the sky with the momentum of splitting the heavens. This marshal has arrived. Those who have wives, hold on tight. Hiss, a deafening and heavy sound shook the heavens. Mu Feng's powerful strike landed heavily on the barrier. In an instant, a layer of strange dark gray cold flame was released from the light barrier in the blink of an eye. The incomparably strange gray flames spread out in circles, like ripples on the surface of the water. However, the surface of the barrier only caved in by about half an inch. The true essence devil chi that lingered at the tip of the Buddha demon's sword continued to attack, but to no avail. Boom! Following that, the layer of demonic aura that covered Mu Feng's body collapsed, and an incomparably powerful recoil came whistling down. Mu Feng was directly sent flying. Haozi hurriedly released a strong and gentle true essence force and pushed it towards Mu Feng's back, causing him to fall back to his original position. "How are you? Are you all right?" Haozi asked. Mu Feng turned his head, and his voice dragged out as he pretended to be relaxed. "I can still hold on. My hand is just a little numb." Lamia Lan Nua giggled. "I said that this dark flame barrier is not something that can be broken by ordinary people. If you hadn't retreated quickly just now, you would have already been turned into ashes." Everyone's expression changed slightly. They didn't expect that they would encounter such a huge obstacle before even seeing the people from Innocence Valley. Shintu Etienne was really good at setting up trap. Everything was done flawlessly. "How is it? You still don't plan to leave?" Lan Nua smiled at Chu Hen again. Long Xuanshuang, Luo Mingshang, and the others also looked at Chu Hen. However, from the beginning to the end, Chu Hen's expression was quite calm. At this moment, his heart was actually calm. Looking at Chu Hen's emotionless face, the tiger-striped race's Nuya revealed a fierce light. Roar! Nuya immediately soared into the sky, and with a shocking ferocity, he stretched out his sharp claws and attacked Chu Hen. "You hesitated for too long." Bang! The violent impact and explosion immediately reverberated in the air. Just as Nuya's sharp claws were about to fall on Chu Hen's neck, Chu Hen swept out like a phantom and heavily kicked his opponent's chest. Nuya, who was caught off guard, quickly fell to the ground and heavily smashed into a mountain peak, causing rocks to fly everywhere. Roar, however, very quickly, his opponent jumped out of the pile of rocks as if nothing had happened. His face was full of ferocity. "Tear them apart!" Roar. "Kill!" A great battle was about to start. The experts of the tiger's striped race exploded with violent energy. The veins on their arms bulged, and their claws and teeth became sharp. In an instant they went berserk. Humph! A group of savage beasts. Not to be outdone, the experts of the mysterious ice sect on Mount Kunliu all drew their swords and prepared to fight. The heavenly serpent race also joined the battle without any hesitation. The ice-cold aura was incomparably cold, and a fierce battle quietly unfolded. "I say, little brother, big sister had the intention to let you go, but you are so stubborn." "Don't blame me." Lan Nua's snake eyes were dark green. She opened her mouth and spat out a scarlet tongue, causing one's scalp to go numb. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold as he coldly replied, "Humph, thank you for your kindness." Bang! The two's palms collided, and a surging chi wave spread out from the middle. The true elemental energy was crushed into pieces, and Lan Nua was directly pushed back. "Eh? I haven't seen you for a long time, and your cultivation seems to have improved a lot. I have underestimated you." However, Chu Hen did not seem to have the intention to continue fighting. He turned around and said to Luo Mengchang and Long Xuanshuang, "Mengchang, protect second sister. Second sister, let me borrow your mystic rain bow." The two girls were startled, But before they had the time to ask, Chu Hen had already flashed and went straight to the dark flame barrier in the sky. Stinking brat, today I will take revenge for my broken arm! The heavenly serpent clan's Qi Lian Chong angrily rushed towards Chu Hen. An ice-cold ferocious aura rushed over like a wave, and behind Qi Lian Chong, a frightening serpent shadow that was like a dragon could be faintly seen. The sky darkened, and the temperature plummeted. The huge serpent shadow was like an ancient ferocious creature. It opened its huge mouth and attacked Chu Hen with the power to swallow the sky. Had the corner of Chu Hen's mouth raised into a disdainful arc, and his mind moved. Chi. Streaks of black lightning immediately rushed out of Chu Hen's body and covered his whole body, jumping wantonly and frightening. In the next moment, Chu Hen actually stepped forward and faced the giant serpent head-on. Boom! The deafening sound came one after another. The moment the fierce serpent shadow touched Chu Hen, it was like a stone pillar that had been pierced by a meteorite, and it collapsed inch by inch. The chaotic true origin power was directly crushed, and the huge serpent shadow from head to tail was torn into pieces. Chu Hen's attack was like a sharp blade, unstoppable. What? Qi Lianchang's face changed dramatically, and his eyes were filled with deep shock. It had only been a short time since they last met, but Chu Hen's strength had already surpassed him by a few hundred times. Whoosh! The sharp sound of wind breaking pierced his eardrums. Qi Lianchong only saw a shadow flash in front of him, and a cold wind blew against his face. In the next moment, Chu Hen had already appeared in front of him. If I want to kill you, it will be as easy as flipping my palm. Today, in front of me, is there any difference between you and an ant? Qi Lianchong's pupils shrank, and great fear filled his entire face. Chu Hen evilly smiled and struck out with his palm. As light as a feather, it landed on his opponent's body. Bang! The seemingly soft and powerless palm was actually the force of a mountain torrent. Qi Lianchong was sent flying like a sandbag, and with an unstoppable speed, he smashed into the sky barrier that spanned across the sky. Boom! Qi Lianchong heavily bombarded the dark flame barrier, and like a bird that had fallen into a net, an extremely powerful energy fluctuation was released from the dark flame barrier. Strange dark gray flames immediately engulfed the entire barrier, and circles of light like the surface of a lake swept in all directions. Qi Lianchong screamed in pain, and the dark gray flames directly enveloped his entire body. Almost at the same time, Chu Hen's eyes suddenly opened, and a purple light surged in the depths of his pupils, and 4 black dots rapidly rotated. Demon Eye. Buzz! In an instant, Chu Hen's visual space underwent a huge change. The world spun and the space distorted. The structure and appearance of the dark flame barrier in front of him appeared almost transparent in front of Chu Hen's eyes. The dark flame barrier was like a huge net. Qi Lianchong, who fell on it, was like a mosquito. Every time he struggled, the huge net would slightly tremble. A slight ripple spread out. Chu Hen's gaze suddenly focused. His attention immediately fell on a position about 200 meters below Qi Lianchong. The barrier there was slightly thinner than other places, and the color was relatively lighter. Found it. Chu Hen was secretly happy. He was right. Together with a powerless hoarse scream, Qi Lianchong was directly burned to ashes by the power of the dark flame barrier. However, Chu Hen acted as if he didn't see it. With a thought, a brilliant light flashed, and a holy axe that shone with golden light appeared in his hand. Holy Cutter Axe. This was the spoil of war he obtained from Xiao Mang of the Heaven Unified Dynasty after the battle on the immortal prying platform. Buzz. Without any hesitation, a vast amount of true essence quickly flowed into the Holy Cutter Axe. The holy axe shone with golden light, as if it was covered in a layer of holy light. Chu Hen spread out his arms and gathered power. Next, he threw the Holy Cutter Axe at full speed. Whoosh! The layers of air were split apart. The Holy Cutter Axe was like a spinning dart, and its speed was as fast as a meteor chasing after the moon. Boom! The holy cutter axe's momentum seemed to be able to split the heavens, and it accurately struck a part of the dark flame barrier. An unprecedented violent tremor spread out in the sky, and the entire barrier shook violently. The holy cutter axe's sharp tip erupted with a powerful penetrative force, and it firmly blocked a part of the barrier. The dark gray flame danced like a ghost. The entire barrier became uneasy, and under everyone's shocked gazes, the part that the holy cutter axe was targeting was actually becoming transparent at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, at the same time, the holy cutter axe's sharp edge also became blunt. Chu Hen actually used a ranked holy tool as the price to forcefully attack the dark flame barrier. What a big move! But how did he know that that part was the weakest part? Not only Mount Kunliu and the mysterious ice sect were surprised, but even the experts of the Heavenly Snake Clan and the Tiger Stripe Clan were surprised. No matter how powerful the barrier was, it was impossible to cover everything. Even if it could be 100% perfect at the beginning, as time went by, there would still be weaker parts. This was Chu Hen's goal. He used his demon eyes to detect the weakest part, and then sew the needle. I'm really surprised. Lan Nua chuckled, and her eyes were filled with admiration. However, this is far from enough to break the dark flame barrier. As soon as she finished speaking, the holy cutter axe was wrapped in a dark gray flame. The holy cutter axe was painted red, and it quickly melted. And a part of the barrier in front of it was already as thin as a piece of paper. Humph! Then Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he shouted, "Mystic Rain Bow! I've been waiting for a long time." Chapter 856. Mystic Rain Bow! I've been waiting for you. A clear and cold voice was transmitted, and everyone present was startled. Behind her, Long Xuanxuang's entire body was surging with a gorgeous ice-blue light. She had already put the bowstring in her hand, and a crystal-clear ice arrow was shining with a dazzling light. What? The expressions of the Heavenly Serpent Clan and the Tiger Stripe Clan changed dramatically. Whoosh! The next moment, Long Xuanxuang flicked her fingers, and the silky bowstring let out a soul-stirring sound. The ice energy between heaven and earth converged on the tip of the arrow like a whale sucking in water. The sharp arrow shot out like a divine light, and a powerful wave of air followed it across the sky. "Block it!" Nuya bellowed fiercely. Several experts of the Tiger Stripe Clan responded and leaped up, trying to block it. However, the Mystic Rain Bow was the treasure of the mysterious ice sect, and its lethality was strong. How could they block it so easily? Hiss, hiss, hiss! Streams of blood splashed in the sky. Shrill screams overlapped with each other. The icy blue ice arrows pierced through the chests of the Tiger Striped Clan's hotshot. Then, their momentum didn't diminish. They dashed towards the dark flame barrier like a rainbow, hitting the place where the holy axe had hit. Bang! The second wave of ferocious attacks poured down. The holy cutter axe was in front, and the Mystic Rain Bow was behind. Chu Hen and Long Xuanxuang's teamwork was smooth like water, just right. In a split second, the entire dark flame boundary experienced an unprecedented turbulence. The huge sky shook uneasily. The ice-blue arrow was extremely sharp, and it emitted a dazzling divine light. The paper-like boundary suddenly became transparent. Buzz! Immediately, under the shocked gazes of everyone present, the dark flame boundary, which had suffered 2 powerful attacks in a row, cracked at a speed visible to the naked eye. Whoosh! The ice arrow pierced through the weakest part of the dark flame boundary like a hot knife through butter, tearing a 1-meter-wide gap. The impenetrable wall was blasted open at this moment. However, he didn't have any time to be happy. After the barrier was torn to more than a meter wide, it actually closed at a slow speed. Without the slightest hesitation, Chu Hen's figure moved and immediately turned into a flowing shadow. "You guys stay here. I'll go in first." Everyone turned pale with fright. While they marveled at Chu Hen's decisiveness, they also felt worried for him. Hua! His movements were as fast as lightning and as graceful as a swan. Chu Hen flew into the crack and instantly disappeared from everyone's sight. Luo Mengchang and Long Xuanshuang wanted to follow closely behind, but the gap had already healed, and the weak light curtain quickly became thick and was covered with a layer of dark gray flame. The dark flame boundary returned to normal. Nothing had ever happened. After a short period of silence, Nuya of the Tiger Stripe clan beamed a cruel smile. You still want to face Shintu Etienne alone? You're really courting death. Long Xuanshuang, Luo Mengchang, Kuan Lu Shan, and the people from the Ice Profound sect all had solemn expressions. However, since things had come to this, they had no other choice but to believe in Chu Hen. A cold, murderous aura once again quietly filled the air, and the piercingly cold, killing intent grew rapidly. Kill. A whoosh. After passing through the dark flame boundary, another shocking scene appeared in front of Chu Hen. The mountains were even more majestic, the abyss was even larger, and the ancient buildings were even more spectacular. The mysterious triangular pyramid, the strange sculptures with jagged rocks, the huge towers and fortresses that were like the pillars of the sky. Everything exuded a sense of time. Vast and spectacular natural chasms meandered and rugged, like giant dragons crawling on the ground. Chu Hen's eyes slightly narrowed, and his heart was slightly restless. Buzz, at this moment, a strange energy fluctuation quietly became especially active in Chu Hen's body. This is? Chu Hen was stunned, and then his brows raised as he said to himself with slight astonishment. The divine Tao stone fragment. The strange energy fluctuation that came from within his body came from the two divine Tao stone fragments in his true origin Violet Palace. This feeling was like an acquaintance that had been separated for a long time was about to meet, and he could clearly feel the obscure fluctuation within it. In an instant, Chu Hen's thoughts from before couldn't help but be confirmed. In this way, the reason Shintu Etienne had brought Yi Yao here was most likely related to the divine Tao stone. Little Yao, big brother Chu Hen will find you very soon. Chu Hen clenched his fists, and his knuckles emitted a clear cracking sound. His gaze was like a sword that flickered with an icy cold light. The mountains were surrounded by spiritual mist. This was an ancient ruin that was far away from the hustle and bustle of the world. Numerous grand and imposing ancient buildings were scattered all over the place, and they stood at the peak of the mountains. When looking down at the ground, the layout was clear, and there were mountains and forests everywhere. It was truly blessed by nature and had a long history. At the center of the numerous ancient buildings stood an enormous stone tablet. This stone tablet was shaped like a mountain, and its imposing aura shot into the sky. It was like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon as it sat beneath the sky. The bottom of the stone tablet was buried deep underground, and the top of it rose into the sky. Its entire body was inscribed with countless mysterious and unfathomable ancient talismans. However, such an enormous stone tablet wasn't complete. This could be seen from the irregular edges of its edges. OM. The spiritual energy between the heavens and the earth formed a faint resonance. In the area above the mysterious stone tablet, a strange Tai Chi yin-yang diagram suddenly floated. The Tai Chi yin-yang diagram spanned a kilometer in diameter, and it rotated slowly like a wheel that blotted out the sky. At the center of the Tai Chi yin-yang diagram sat a delicate figure. It was a young girl. She sat quietly with her legs crossed with her eyes closed. Her fair face and exquisite features made her seem like a statue. If one observed carefully, one would notice that an endless stream of Tai Chi yin-yang energy was being released from the mysterious stone tablet below. Countless strands of black and white light seemed to be sublimated, and they converged into the rotating Tai Chi yin-yang diagram. The Tai Chi yin-yang diagram acted as a conductor before fusing into the girl's body. Tai Chi yin and yang energy were both part of the Grand Tao. Under the illumination of the two rays of light, the girl seemed beautiful and moving. With the stone tablet at the center, There were 10 people with steady auras guarding the Tai Chi yin-yang diagram. These 10 experts sat in the air, guarding the girl from all directions. All of their gazes were like torches as they stared fixedly at the Tai Chi yin-yang diagram. They practically didn't even blink, and they absolutely wouldn't allow the slightest mistake to occur. "Young master, it's already been over a month. Why hasn't there been any movement?" On an ancient, open-air city tower a few kilometers away from the stone tablet, there was a wide chair made of white jade that gave off a luxurious aura. On the jade chair, a man in luxurious clothes sat sideways, and a cynical smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. This person was none other than the young master of Innocence Valley, Shintu Etienne. It had to be said that Shintu Etienne was an extremely charming man. Although he seemed like a playboy, anyone who'd interacted with him knew that he was absolutely not someone to be trifled with. There's no rush. If it could be completed so easily, then it wouldn't be called a saint physique. Shintu Etienne smiled faintly. Besides Shintu Etienne, there were 4 other people standing on the city tower. 3 men and 1 woman. They were his 4 trusted guards, Kuang Xiong, Xieling, Xueqin, and Qing Shi. Unless there was a special mission, the 4 of them practically never left Shintu Etienne's side. Absolute loyalty. In order to complete this plan, Shintu Etienne had meticulously planned it for several years. In order to find a suitable physique, he'd spent countless manpower and resources. The 4 of them watched as Shintu Etienne completed this plan step by step. It could be said that he'd worked hard and made great contributions. The great Tao Divine Stone really is worthy of being a supreme divine object in the world. It's been buried here for thousands of years, but it still contains supreme divine power. The ferocious Kuang Xiong said. Of course, and this isn't even a complete Great Tao Divine Stone. I really don't know what kind of extraordinary existence an intact Great Tao Divine Stone is. Another trusted guard, Xieling, also said in amazement. If it's a complete Great Tao Divine Stone, I believe that it'll only take a few days for the bloodline to evolve, right? Hearing their conversation, Shintu Etienne smiled faintly. He casually picked up a wine glass next to him and played with it. He smiled with interest and said, "The Great Tao Divine Stone is indeed a supreme divine item in the world, but most of the factors for the bloodline boundary to rise still depend on Yu Er. The power of the Great Tao contains the power of Yin and Yang. Yu Er, who has the bloodline of Yin and Yang, can be said to be just right." Shintu Etienne drank the remaining wine in his cup, then smiled again. "The heavens are also helping me, Shintu Etienne, to find such a substitute master. After we leave the ancient desolate heaven domain, in less than 100 years, our without Wang Valley will no longer be weaker than the Thousand-World Sect, Thunder Saint Palace, Palace of Johua." Chapter 857. Great Tao Cliff, Yin-Yang Heaven. A mysterious and ancient stone tablet covered in strange runes stood at the peak of the mountain like stars surrounding the moon. It was at the center of the many ancient and majestic buildings. 10 black-clothed experts with stable auras sat in the air like statues, guarding the surroundings of the Taiji Yin-Yang formation without moving. At the heart of the formation, a young girl was enveloped in dense Yin and Yang energy. Her pretty face was beautiful, but there was an indescribable sense of pity. This was the only thing Shintu Etienne had done since the ancient desolation heaven domain opened. Honesty Valley didn't go anywhere. He went straight to the Great Tao Cliff. This was a plan he had meticulously planned over the years. Now it was about to reach the final stage. It was also the stage he looked forward to the most. The heavens are helping me, Shintu Etienne, to find such a substitute master. After we leave the ancient desolation heaven domain, how can my Honesty Valley be weaker than the myriad world sect, Thunder Saint Palace, Johua Palace? Above the ancient city, Shintu Etienne stood up from his white jade chair. His eyes flickered with a fiery light and contained an enormous ambition. His 4 trusted guards behind him couldn't help but have burning looks on their faces as they said in unison. We congratulate young master in advance for taking control of an area and achieving great things. Ha 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 ha! Shinto Itian spread his arms and showed an extraordinary demeanor. Young master, this servant has a question. Green Snake twisted her slender waist and said coquettishly, after young master completes this plan, how will you deal with that woman? His eyes flashed with a cold light as he glanced at the girl in the yin-yang formation above the great Tao Divine Stone. Shinto Itian raised his brows and looked at Green Snake lightly. You said, Ching or Green Snake smiled coquettishly. I think young master likes her a lot. Why don't you let her live after this is done? Then, I'll train her to be a female slave and let her serve young master. Shinto Itian revealed a satisfied smile again and lifted Green Snake's sharp chin. Ching knows this young master the best. The Green Snake giggled seductively. Xieleng, Xuechen, and Kuang Xiong could not help but curse inwardly. Others might not know, but they all knew. The female slaves trained by Green Snake could not be called humans at all. They had no dignity to speak of. However, Shinto Itian enjoyed the fruits of Green Snake's labor. At this moment, Xieleng, Xuechen, and the others could not help but feel pity for Yu Er's future. Once she fell into Shinto Itian's hands, even death would be a luxury. How miserable! Violent Bear sneered inwardly. Buzz! Suddenly, an obscure glyph appeared on the surface of the great Tao Divine Stone. Like a leaf falling into a calm lake, ripples spread out in all directions. The eyes of all the black-clothed experts around Yi Yao narrowed, and solemn expressions appeared on their faces. Young master, the great Path Divine Stone is reacting strangely. One of the black-robed fighters said. The corners of Shinto Itian's mouth curled up, and he smiled with interest. Very good. Since there's someone that can pass through my dark flame barrier, what? As soon as these words left his mouth, everyone in Innocence Valley was shocked. Young master, did you say someone came in? Violent Bear frowned. Shinto Itian's expression was calm and condescending. He looked at the flickering glyph on the huge stone and could not help but sneer. Not only do I know someone came in, but I also know who it is. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Shinto Itian's eyes suddenly shot out 2 rays of light. He glanced to the side and looked at the sky behind him. In the next moment, everyone caught sight of the obscure aura. Along with the piercingly cold and powerful sword aura, a slightly thin young figure appeared in the sky like a divine rainbow. It's that bastard. When Violent Bear saw the person, he clenched his fists, and a ferocious expression appeared on his face. Apart from Shinto Itian, the other 3 were surprised. I'll go kill him right now. Violent Bear didn't waste his breath and directly stood up in a rage, and he gave rise to a ferocious aura that shot into the sky. What a kid! I let you slip away outside Songhai City that day. I never expected that you'd actually come knocking on my door today. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold as he recognized the person before him as well. At that time, Chu Hen had brought Yi Yao along to hide from pursuers in the forest outside Songhai City. In the end, it was Violent Bear who led a group of people to find them, and then he seized Yi Yao from Chu Hen's side and brought her back to Innocence Valley. Humph! A fierce imposing aura surged out of Chu Hen's body, and it tore the air apart and emanated waves of air that shook the surroundings. When he saw Chu Hen advancing instead of retreating and charging over with a disdainful expression, Violent Bear was both shocked and furious. Did this bastard eat a bear's heart or a leopard's gall? How dare he offend me? You're courting death! Rumble, in an instant, a monstrous scarlet flame erupted from behind Violent Bear like an erupting volcano. Strong winds howled, and the heavens and earth lost their color. Accompanied by a ferocious beast's roar that shook the heavens, an enormous phantom of a Violent Bear immediately condensed around Violent Bear, the gorgeous patterns of light converged, and Violent Bear's body rapidly became more solid. It waved its huge claws and charged straight at Chu Hen, who was not even the size of a finger. Just wait to be crushed! Roar! The enormous, violent bear's strength could break mountains and rivers, and its momentum shook the heavens. It was incomparably violent and ferocious. Chu Hen was unmoved, and he suddenly sped up. Along with a series of blurry afterimages that flashed through the sky, Chu Hen instantly transformed into a white humanoid sword aura and charged forward. The sound of strong winds being cut apart was rapid and ear-piercing. In the next instant, the enormous violent bear collided with the white humanoid sword aura head-on. Bang! There was a deafening explosion, and it was as if stars and moon had collided. A dazzling wave of light that spanned thousands of feet bloomed from within. Its surging momentum shook the heavens and swept in all directions. Under the astonished gazes of the people from Innocence Valley, the enormous violent bear that shook the heavens and earth was pierced through from front to back, and then it exploded into pieces. Ugh! A large mouthful of blood gushed out from the fury bear's mouth. The latter was like a sandbag that had suffered a heavy blow as it shot down diagonally and smashed heavily onto the mountain wall of a mountain range. Mountain rocks flew into the air while dense cracks spread out on the mountain wall like a spiderweb. You! Violent Bear's face was ghastly pale. His eyes widened in anger and shock. How was this possible? It had to be known that Chu Hen could not even withstand a single attack from him at that time. If he had not run away quickly, Violent Bear might have ended Chu Hen's life back then. Whoosh! Dust filled the air and sword rays fell like rain. Chu Hen stood proudly in the void. His body was surrounded by invisible sword chi, following him like a shadow. He did not spare Violent Bear another glance. His deep and cold gaze was like an arrow that shot straight at the young figure with an extraordinary bearing on the open-air city tower. He spat out a few words coldly. Chapter 858. Shentu. Etienne? Dust filled the air and sword light rained down. The piercingly cold chi pattern wind wantonly spread. Chu Hen no longer looked at Guangxiong. His ice-cold gaze was like a sharp sword as it shot towards the young figure on the open-air city tower. The moment their gazes met, it was as if two arrows had collided. Invisible sparks seemed to burst forth in the air. Coldness flowed and swept in all directions. Xieling, Xueqin, and Green Snake's three trusted guards all frowned. They looked at Guangxiong, who had been smashed into the stone wall by Chu Hen's attack, with some surprise. He had been defeated in a single exchange. It truly shocked them. However, Shentu Etienne wore a light smile as he held the wine cup in his hand in a playful manner. "I'm sorry for my subordinate's rude behavior." Shentu Etienne took a sip of the wine in his cup, raised his eyebrows and said, "Have we met before?" This was the first time Chu Hen and Shentu Etienne faced each other head-on. One was the rising star of Mount Kunliu, the other was the young master of Innocence Valley, who had been famous for a long time. Even though it was the first time the two had met, the hatred in Chu Hen's eyes was exceptionally clear. Because of Yi Yao, Chu Hen hated Shentu Etienne, whom he had never met before, to the bone. However, Shentu Etienne did not know the purpose of Chu Hen's visit today. "What do you think?" Chu Hen's gaze was as sharp as a needle, piercing straight into the other party's heart. Shentu Etienne nodded slightly, still smiling. "Since you don't know each other, why did you come here? Aren't you very smart, young Master Shentu? You can guess my purpose." Chu Hen sneered frivolously. "Ha ha ha ha!" Shentu Etienne laughed lightly and shook his head. His eyebrows were filled with ridicule. He looked straight at Chu Hen's sharp gaze and raised his voice. "Sorry, I, Shentu Etienne, have never guessed the thoughts of a dead man, the thoughts of a dead man." Buzz! As soon as Shentu Etienne finished speaking, the sky above the heavens suddenly changed. The heavens and the earth suddenly dimmed as dark clouds roiled, and a shockingly powerful aura suddenly pressed down towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen's heart skipped a beat. He raised his head and saw a majestic golden pillar of light piercing through the clouds like the divine rays of the sun. It poured down and enveloped him within rumble, the air waves stacked up, and the airflow in all directions became incomparably agitated. A power comparable to that of a mountain surged forth, and a huge cauldron the size of a palace unexpectedly appeared above Chu Hen's head out of thin air. The giant cauldron had a dark luster, and mysterious patterns of elephant beasts floated on its surface. An immense pressure assaulted him. A thick black shadow blocked Chu Hen's line of sight. The giant cauldron trapped Chu Hen inside. Then, it pressed down forcefully. It was as if a meteorite had smashed into the ground. Bang! The earth shook and the mountains shook without end. A mountain ridge in front of him was crushed and collapsed. The edge of the giant cauldron sank deep into the ground, completely sealing Chu Hen inside. Roar! A majestic and resonant elephant cry resounded through the heavens. The elephant beast pattern on the body of the cauldron blossomed with a dazzling brilliance. Then, tens of thousands of light patterns flew up and converged at the top of the giant cauldron like a tidal wave. Then, they transformed into the phantom of a giant elephant with long teeth and red fur. The giant elephant with long hair that seemed like an ancient ferocious beast stepped on top of the giant cauldron, causing the giant cauldron to be as steady as a mountain. It gave off an extremely powerful aura that even a deity would find difficult to turn around. Hua! The flying dust gradually calmed down. Shintu Etienne sneered as he looked at the scene before him. He raised his hand and drank the wine in his cup. This fully demonstrated what it meant to turn one's opponent into ashes while chatting. Don't even think about coming out after entering my demonic elephant cauldron. Sometimes, brute force alone isn't enough. Xialing, Xueqin, Green Snake, and the others sneered. They admired and feared Shintu Etienne from the bottom of their hearts. He was meticulous, and his arrangements were powerful. He didn't even need to make a move himself to kill his opponent. The dark flame barrier outside was only Shintu Etienne's first defensive formation. Even with such a powerful defensive formation, Shintu Etienne still didn't forget to dig a hole in the middle. This was the reason why Shintu Etienne was feared the most. Especially for those who fought him for the first time. If they weren't careful, they would suffer a great loss. After entering your demonic elephant cauldron, it won't take 10 minutes for him to be torn to pieces by the violent energy inside. This bastard really deserves to die. Xialing said with a gloomy expression. It's a pity for Kuang Xiong. He suffered such a serious injury for nothing. Xueqin said with a gloating smile. Between the 4 trusted protectors, they often attacked each other. Kuang Xiong suffered because of his impulsiveness. In their eyes it was quite comical. Young Master Green Snake's eyes flashed coldly. He subconsciously glanced at Yi Yao, who was in the Tai Chi Yin-Yang formation above the great Tao Divine Stone. He said coldly, "Aren't we going to find out why he's here?" "Ha ha!" Shintu Etienne laughed lightly, and he revealed an indifferent expression. "What does that matter? He's just a nobody. Why should I, Shintu Etienne, care about him?" Arrogance. Absolute arrogance. This was a kind of arrogance that looked down on everyone. In other people's eyes, Shintu Etienne definitely had the qualifications to be so disdainful. Bang! But at this moment, a muffled sound caused the earth, mountains, and rivers to tremble again. Everyone was shocked. Their attention immediately returned to the demonic elephant cauldron. Bang! The formless and powerful vibrations came one after another, and the formless sound waves swept in all directions. Someone was using a heavy hammer to strike the interior of the demonic elephant cauldron, launching an incomparably ferocious attack from the inside out. What a powerful impact! The people of Innocence Valley couldn't help but frown. Even Shintu Etienne looked a little surprised. The demonic elephant cauldron was a ranked divine artifact. Coupled with Shintu Etienne's restrictions, it was enough to suppress and kill experts below the 9th level of the Earth Profound Realm. And with Chu Hen's cultivation, even 10 of him wouldn't be able to escape. Boom! Before the people of Innocence Valley could react, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. A powerful and terrifying silver wave swept out along the ground. The mighty light patterns crushed the stone layer, scraping off a thick layer. In an instant, a dazzling starlight pillar forcibly penetrated the top of the huge cauldron. The astonishing and terrifying power was like the divine light of dawn that penetrated the thick layer of clouds, soaring into the sky and slanting across the firmament. Buzz, buzz! The mammoth standing on top of the cauldron flickered. Its aura fluctuated between strong and weak. It was very unstable. Cracks began to spread in all directions along the cauldron's opening, rapidly covering its entire body. What? The expressions of Xueqin, Xieling, Green Snake, and the others all changed. Shintu Etienne's pupils constricted. Rumble, an even more berserk silver pillar of light pierced through the sky, and the hairy mammoth phantom at the top directly exploded into thousands of crystal fragments. Rumble. Chapter 859. Boom! An incomparably heavy and violent tremor swept through the entire area like a mountain and river. A circle of powerful and vigorous silver light crushed the rocks, and a thick layer of dust was blown off. The mammoth that had stepped on the cauldron instantly exploded into thousands of crystal fragments. Starlight shone resplendently, piercing through the sky. Chu Hen's aura was monstrous as he soared into the sky. Starlight surrounded his entire body, especially in his left arm. A majestic power of stars danced and rose in his palm, as if he controlled the heavens. This guy, everyone in Honesty Valley was secretly shocked. The few protectors standing next to Shintu Etienne all had cold expressions. Chu Hen had come prepared. Everyone had indeed underestimated Chu Hen's strength. They hadn't expected him to be so powerful. Not only had he escaped from the demonic elephant cauldron, but he had even pierced a huge hole through it. At the same time, Chu Hen was also cautious. Shintu Etienne was indeed a ruthless character that made people feel fearful. If he hadn't obtained a 7-star soul and coincidentally obtained 4-star soul pearls, he would definitely have been in trouble just now. Even so, the fierceness in Chu Hen's eyes grew even more fervent. Xing, a crisp sword aura let out a resonant hum. Chu Hen twisted 2 fingers, and a vigorous sword shadow gathered around his arm, turning into a holy sword that spat out green light. That's Mount Kunliu's blue sky sword? Everyone in Honesty Valley was even more shocked. Shintu Etienne's eyes narrowed, and then he smiled playfully. I heard that Mount Kunliu has a descendant of Gong Yangyu. Looks like it's you? My apologies. Humph. Chu Hen smiled coldly. With a flip of his wrist, he pointed his sword at Shintu Etienne. A piercingly cold sword intent whistled in all directions, and his eyes emitted a piercing chill. Shintu Etienne, I'm going to skin you alive today. His heavy aura was like a thunderclap that shook everyone's heartstrings. How dare you? The 3 protectors, Xieling, Xueqin, and Green Snake, shouted in unison. They then flew up and each of them carried a powerful force towards Chu Hen. You nameless pawns dare to insult the young master? How arrogant! Humph. Looking at the 3 menacing people, Chu Hen looked down on them. He condensed his palm, and the starlight gathered on his left arm shone brightly. The light waves circulated, and the cyclone was like the wind. The airflow between the heaven and the earth became abnormally restless. The power of millions of stars rapidly rotated and compressed, forming an extremely dense sphere in Chu Hen's palm. Merak Kill, Shattering Star River. Relying on the 7-star soul in his body, this killer move was a piece of cake. It was as if he had practiced it for more than 10 years. Whoosh! The dazzling sphere was thrown out like a meteor streaking across the sky. As it moved, it rapidly enlarged and emitted an incomparably violent destructive wave. Xieling, Xueqin, and Green Snake were not ordinary people. They could tell at a glance that the destructive power of Chu Hen's move was not something they could face head-on. Retreat! Xieling shouted and retreated in 3 different directions with the other 2. Boom! In the next moment, the huge energy sphere exploded like a self-destructing star. The heaven and earth lost their color, and a scorching wave of air rushed into the sky. The destructive and violent energy wave swept towards the three with an earth-shattering momentum. Bang, bang, bang. Even though Xiaolong and the other two reacted in time, they had still underestimated the destructive power of the seven-star soul after it was compressed. The violent power was like the impact of a mountain. The three's bodies shook and their blood surged. They retreated once again. Shintu Etienne, who was standing on the open-air city tower, had a cold look on his face. His cold eyes flashed, and he flipped his palm. The jade porcelain wine cup between his fingers suddenly flew out. Whoosh! An incomparably powerful wave of air was dragged between heaven and earth. The wine cup had turned into a hidden weapon that could take away one's life. It tore through the air and went straight for the vitals. Chu Hen leaned to the side and struck with his sword. The sharp tip of the sword accurately hit the wine cup. Bang! Once the two collided, along with a burst of chaotic air, the wine cup immediately exploded in front of the blue Ran sword. Thousands of light fragments flew in all directions. Whoosh! A hurried sound of wind breaking could be heard. Shintu Etienne, who was 2 to 3 miles away a second ago, suddenly appeared in front of Chu Hen. An aura that surpassed the 8th level of the Earth Profound Realm pressed down on Chu Hen. Shintu Etienne's brocade robe fluttered in the wind. He looked extremely graceful and extraordinary. He stretched out his palm. It was as if he had the power to destroy mountains and rivers. He directly hit Chu Hen's face. "Take my palm." "As you wish." There seemed to be a trace of frivolity flickering in Chu Hen's eyes. The blue Ran sword launched a frontal charge. Circle after circle of flowing sword patterns scuttled up and down. At the same time, dense black thunder and lightning immediately scuttled out, covering the outside of the sword. This sword gathered many kinds of power. The sword's momentum was like a rainbow. Even if it was an expert at the 8th level of the Earth Profound Realm, it was enough to pierce through his opponent's palm. Shintu Etienne met it with his bare hands. It seemed that he was a bit too confident. However, Shintu Etienne's expression still did not change at all. In an instant, the sword and the palm collided head-on. Bang! The impact of the violent power was like a clap of thunder. It emitted a heavy and violent sound. A beautiful wave of light spread out from between the two of them. The scene of Shintu Etienne's palm being pierced did not appear. The blue Ran sword seemed to have stabbed into a steel plate, unable to move forward at all. "I really look forward to using the blue Ran sword as a collection," Shintu Etienne teased indifferently. Boom! Subsequently, a fierce hidden force surged out. Chu Hen's arm trembled slightly, and the blue Ran sword was actually forcefully shaken away. In the next second, the space in Shintu Etienne's palm distorted and floated. A beautiful secret talisman flickered in his palm. With a flash of golden light, a token that emitted a powerful and dignified aura quietly appeared in his palm. This token was very strange. It was nearly half a meter long, wide at the top and narrow at the bottom. Its appearance was a bit similar to the official token that all the civil officials in the court held when the emperor attended morning court. However, the two definitely could not be compared on the same level. Shintu Etienne seemed to be holding a small sword that emitted divine might. Many strange golden spirit patterns flickered on the token. However, it was precisely this kind of token that directly suppressed the powerful attack of the blue Ran sword. It really made Chu Hen cautious. Let me briefly introduce this object. It's called the 5 Elements token. A complacent sneer rose from the corner of Shintu Etienne's mouth. 5 Elements token? Chapter 860. 5 Elemental Order? OM. As he gazed at the command token that flickered with gorgeous golden markings in Shintu Etienne's hand, Chu Hen couldn't help but frown, and a slightly serious expression instantly surged into his eyes. Since he stepped into Mount Kunliu, no matter if it was his horizons or knowledge, Chu Hen had increased greatly. He'd heard of this so-called 5 elemental order in the past. It was a Saint artifact ranked at the 10th position on the Saint artifact rankings. Merely in terms of ranking, it surpassed the Blue Rand sword. The expression on your face isn't enough to satisfy me. Whoosh! An extremely powerful and vigorous aura gushed out from Shinto Etienne's body. The rumors of him in the outside world seemed to have greatly underestimated his ability. Swish! As soon as he finished speaking, Shinto Etienne flipped his wrist, and the 5 elemental order in his hand shot out like an arrow that left the bow. It traversed the sky like a divine ray tearing through the air, and it assaulted Chu Hen. A dazzling beam of light pierced through the sky and tore through the air. The friction between the beam of light and the air caused a layer of scorching red flames to actually ignite on the surface of the 5 elemental order, and a violent wave of air directly slapped towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly as he similarly flipped his palm, and the Blue Rand sword left his hand as well. The flowing sword markings coiled and revolved around the blade of the sword like a blue wave, and its speed was so swift that it was comparable to 2 shooting stars that had unexpectedly encountered each other. Bang! The golden and green beams of light collided and intersected, causing the heavens and the earth to tremble. The stacked waves of air that overlapped each other could topple mountains and overturn the seas, and layer after layer of light waves whistled out. The Blue Rand sword and the 5 elemental order were equally matched, and both of them were repelled backwards. Swoosh! Swoosh! The Blue Rand sword returned to Chu Hen's body, and he controlled it from afar and dragged out a string of sword images. However, at the instant the 5 elemental order was about to fall back into Shinto Etienne's hand, a wisp of a disdainful sneer appeared on the corners of the latter's mouth, and then he turned his body. A strand of true essence at the tip of his finger drove the 5 elemental order to make a 360-degree turn. After the 5 elemental order made a circle, it once again flew towards Chu Hen at twice its speed. Open! Along with Shinto Etienne's shout, the 5-element medallion instantly split into 5, transforming into 5 different colored medallions that slashed out. The 5 tokens were like 5 sharp swords, each emitting a powerful energy fluctuation. Shio! The Blue Rand sword attacked through the air, its sword momentum shocking the heavens. Ding ding ding! A string of clear sounds resounded out as the Jirun sword flicked all 5 command tokens away, causing sparks to spray in all directions as sword lights shot out. But in the next instant, those command tokens that were flicked away directly drew out numerous powerful arcs in the sky, and they once again launched ferocious attacks at Chu Hen from different directions. Chu Hen did not dare to be careless in the face of this attack that was like an arrow chasing after him. He once again unleashed the power of the one sword flying celestial art. His body spun rapidly like a top, and the airflow between heaven and earth formed a terrifying tornado. The overwhelming sword momentum pounced on the entire area. One sword deity, myriad sword tribulation. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, the Blue Rand sword divided into 10, 10 into 100, 100 into 1,000. It instantly transformed into a rain of swords that covered the sky and swept out in all directions like a myriad of swords. Bang! 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 The endless sword silhouettes continuously collided with the 5 command tokens, and the sound of energy explosions resounded in the air. Heavy explosions resounded incessantly, and the heavens and earth shook. The sky darkened, and the magnificent scene was like a deluge of heavenly flowers that dazzled the eyes. The rhythm of Shinto Etienne's attack continued to increase, and the strength and speed of the 5 command tokens increased instead of decreasing. On the other hand, Chu Hen had also thoroughly executed the one sword flying celestial art. The sword silhouettes formed by the Blue Rand sword grew more and more, and they covered the sky and earth. In just a blink of an eye, the space that both of them were in had shockingly transformed into a forbidden area of death. The mountains on the ground were pierced by the fierce sword chi, and a large area of mountain ridges and jungles were filled with potholes. It was a scene of desolation, There was no doubt that if someone fell into it, they would be instantly turned into a sieve. Xieleng, Xuechen, and Green Snake had long since retreated from the battle, and they had conveniently rescued the heavily injured Violent Bear. They did not go forward to assist Shintu Etienne. As his trusted protectors, they were very clear about Shintu Etienne's personality. Once he made a move, he would not allow anyone to interfere. Of course, in their opinion, Shintu Etienne did not need anyone's help at all. The battle between the two top geniuses of the victorious East State was so intense that the sky and earth darkened. Meanwhile, the great Tao Divine Stone was still peaceful. The huge stone tablet was covered in ancient and mysterious runes, and the crisscrossing secret scriptures were like patterns of plants and vines, flowing with dense patterns of light. Above the stone tablet, the Tai Chi yin-yang diagram that spanned 1,000 meters slowly rotated in a steady manner. Yin and yang energy revolved around it, and the young girl in the center of the diagram was oblivious to the affairs of the world. It was as if she had sunk into an endless dream. The dozen or so black-clothed experts from Innocence Valley, who were guarding the Tai Chi yin-yang diagram, still remained in their original positions. Guarding this formation was their only mission. Previously, Shintu Etienne had clearly told them that even if the sky collapsed, they were not allowed to take half a step away. Following Shintu Etienne's orders, they could only wait for further orders. Boom! Bang! The mountains and rivers were about to shatter, and the waterfall flowed backwards. The collision of the sword rain and the phantoms created a terrifying aftershock that crushed layers of soil and flattened ancient buildings. Shintu Etienne's attack was extremely powerful, and the 5 elements token was even more intimidating. However, Chu Hen's defense was flawless. It was almost impenetrable. Humph! At this moment, Shintu Etienne suddenly let out a contemptuous laugh. Looks like Mount Kunlia's one-sword flying immortal technique is only SOSO. Next, I'll let you witness the true power of the 5 elements token clatter. With that, Shintu Etienne put his palms together, and a wisp of mysterious golden patterns surrounded his fingertips. Metal. Heavenly Dipper slash. Buzz, buzz. In an instant, the golden token among the 5 tokens suddenly shone brightly, and an extremely terrifying power erupted. There seemed to be the soft hum of a sharp weapon in the air. The golden token's entire body flickered with flowing patterns, and it suddenly transformed into a huge golden blade. The golden blade that seemed to possess the strength of a god was like a hot knife through butter, and the countless sword shadows that whistled through the air were directly shattered. The destructive might pressed down, and the huge blade split the heavens and the earth apart as it slashed down towards Chu Hen. What a powerful lethality! In such a hurry, Chu Hen didn't dare to put on a strong front, and he exploded forth with his fastest speed. Swoosh! He transformed into an afterimage, and he vanished on the spot like a ray of light. Bang! The huge golden blade slashed onto a mountain in the area below, causing rocks to collapse and the ground to quake. The mountain was forcefully split into 2 from the middle. Such power was really terrifying. Even though Chu Hen avoided Shintu Etienne's first attack, an enormous black shadow suddenly appeared above him before he could stabilize himself. Earth. Heaven connecting peak. What? Chu Hen was slightly shocked, and he raised his head to look. He saw a mountain that was more than 300 m wide appear out of thin air in the sky, and it was comparable to a falling meteorite as it smashed down fiercely. Chu Hen, who was below the mountain, seemed especially tiny. Without any hesitation, Chu Hen flashed down at an extremely fast speed, and he moved swiftly towards the periphery. However, the speed of the mountain's descent was just as fast, and it was ferocious. It was practically smashing down against Chu Hen's body. Heh, do you think that's it? There's more. Shintu Etienne's face was filled with ridicule as he watched Chu Hen being continuously pressed down by the mountain. Then, he stretched out a single hand and turned it in the air. The token that glowed with emerald green light suddenly transformed into a beam of light, and it suddenly leaped into the ground, and burrowed deep into the ground. Wood-piercing pillar. Rumble, the ground split open and the soil exploded. One after another, huge wooden stakes shot out from the ground and shot up into the sky. The top of the wooden pillars was abnormally sharp, and it faced upwards, directly towards the descending Chu Hen. Above him was a huge rock, and below him was a wooden pillar that reached the sky. Chu Hen's pupils sharpened, and he was not panicked. When he was less than 30 meters away from the wooden pillar, countless bolts of black lightning flowed out of his body. Chi. The violent dark lightning rapidly gathered in Chu Hen's left palm. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts interweaved, emitting the loud cries of hundreds and thousands of birds. Immediately, Chu Hen lowered his body and raised his hand, attacking the incomparably sharp wooden pillar head-on. Boom! Crack! A piercingly cold aura shook the surroundings. Chu Hen seemed to have transformed into an invincible blade of black lightning. The wooden pillar below him was cut open from the top, all the way to the middle, and then the bottom. Wood splinters flew everywhere, and lightning flickered. Such a majestic and shocking scene filled the faces of the people from Innocence Valley with shock. "This guy is terrifyingly strong," Xieling narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice. So what if he is strong? How can he be a match for the young master?" Green Snake sneered. Bang! In an instant, the entire huge wooden pillar was split into two halves by Chu Hen. But at the same time, the huge mountain flew over and landed heavily without any hindrance. Together with the protruding wooden pillars, it pressed down on Chu Hen's body. Boom! The mountains shook and the earth cracked. The broken trees were all crushed, and Chu Hen was directly pressed under the huge rock. Seal! The corner of Shintu Etienne's mouth curled up, and his eyes were full of mockery. Crack! Crack! Along with the rustling sounds, the densely packed vines extended from the ground and spread out towards the top of the boulder. Like an inescapable net, countless vines and vegetation quickly covered the top and bottom of the boulder, forming a reinforced sealing cage, completely trapping Chu Hen within. "Even if that guy doesn't die, he can forget about coming out alive," Furious Bear said fiercely. The other three protectors looked at each other and couldn't help but reveal proud smiles. As they had expected, Shintu Etienne ended the battle in just 3 moves. With the 5-element token, Shintu Etienne rarely had a match among the younger generation in Victory East State. Shintu Etienne's expression was indifferent, and he gave off an arrogant air. Chapter 861. "It's really boring," a wisp of a disdainful sneer suffused Shintu Etienne's face as he gazed at the boulder that was bound by countless strong green vines, and his entire body emanated a haughty aura. The battle had already ended before the 5-element orders might have been fully exerted. To Shintu Etienne, this was both strength and a trace of boredom. Boom! However, as soon as he finished speaking, a dazzling silver saber light suddenly pierced through the boulder like a divine ray of light. What? The expressions of Xieling, Kuang Xiong, Qing Shi, and the others who were watching the battle from afar changed, and the complacent expressions on their faces instantly froze. Shintu Etienne frowned as well, and his expression was slightly cold. Whoosh! A resounding and clear cry resounded as the saber light slashed through the boulder and the green vines, causing dazzling light to ceaselessly spill out. The green vines that were wrapped around the boulder were broken in succession, and they fluttered about randomly like the body of a giant snake that had been cut apart. Rumble! Subsequently, a shocking impact erupted from within, and it was like a ferocious undercurrent that surged in the deep sea. A myriad of silver rays of light pierced through the sky, and under the astounded gazes of everyone, the boulder that was comparable to a mountain was split into 2 and forcefully split open from the middle. "It's really quite boring." A similarly frivolous sneer entered everyone's ears, and then a fierce young figure flashed out with an unprecedented domineering aura. Chu Hen held a saber that flickered with a silver light in his hand, and his gaze was like a torch as it shot straight at Shintu Etienne, who was in the sky. "That's Heaven Tianai saber," Qing Shi, Xieling, and the others stared at the silver saber in Chu Hen's hand with astonishment. The blade was perfectly straight like a sword, and its appearance was similar to the leaves of cattail grass. Amidst its simplicity, it revealed a sharp aura that was difficult to conceal. After a short moment of surprise, Shentu Etienne's shining gaze that was filled with surprise returned. Very good. Another weapon that's about to become part of my collection. Whoosh. A hurried atmosphere suddenly arose, and a monstrous blazing flame appeared between heaven and earth. Without the slightest hesitation, Shentu Etienne spread open his arms, causing his robe to flutter with the wind while his gaze turned cold. With a wave of his hand, a fiery red command token tore through the sky and flashed explosively like a shooting star. A scorching red shadow was dragged out. Boom! As it moved, the red command token was like a ball of exploding fireball that emanated surging crimson light and surging waves of heat capable of toppling mountains and overturning the seas, causing even space to be scorched to the point of warping indeterminately. Shentu Etienne was surrounded by fire runes. He formed seals with both hands and shouted in a deep voice, "Fire, burning cloud arrow!" Buzz, the power of all the flames gathered at one point. In an instant, a flaming arrow suddenly broke free from the boundless scarlet light. With the power to pierce through the heavens and earth, it attacked Chu Hen. The flame arrow rapidly enlarged, instantly turning into a giant arrow that pierced through the clouds. Wherever it went, a rain of fire soared into the sky, and a long line of scorched ravines was quickly drawn out from the forest ridge below. Chu Hen's pupils constricted slightly. He held the saber with both hands, and a majestic force surged out like an erupting mountain torrent. The Tianai saber that was raised above his head gathered the power of creation. Vast true essence blasted out completely, and they intertwined with each other as they shot up. Slash! The Tianai saber slashed down forcefully, and a solid saber light slashed out furiously. Roar! Ferocious might shook the heavens, and a vicious aura arose. Shockingly, a white saber-toothed tiger that looked down upon all things charged out from within the shocking saber light. Bang! Bang! Ferocious aura surged into the sky, and flames burned the clouds. Under the surprised gazes of everyone from Innocence Valley, the flaming arrow struck the white saber-toothed tiger head-on. The collision of these two terrifying forces directly gave rise to a raging hurricane and a tornado in the sky. It was like a storm had collided, and the heavens and the earth darkened. Countless scorching fireballs covered the heavens and the earth, and they fell like rain. The entire area seemed as if it had welcomed a rain of fire. Layer upon layer of airwaves ceaselessly spread in all directions, and even the ground was scorched black. 5-element order Tianai saber. This had already become a competition between saint weapons on the ranking list. Boom! The chaotic forces in the sky had yet to subside, and water suddenly flooded the golden mountain below. Accompanied by waves of raging waves, the area below Chu Hen suddenly surged with a torrent, and immediately turned into a body of water. Meanwhile, beautiful ice-blue water ripples flickered around Shentu Etienne's body. He formed a seal with both hands, and with a lift of his eyes, a circle of obscure ripples spread out in all directions. Water, fierce crocodile kill! Roar! Accompanied by the deafening roar of a fierce beast, the water below Chu Hen set off layer upon layer of raging waves. Water splashed all over the sky like rain, and a ferocious aura whistled out. In an instant, a huge crocodile that was as large as a mountain leaped out of the water. It waved its huge claws, opened its huge mouth full of sharp teeth, and pounced towards Chu Hen. This scene was really intense. It had to be said that Shentu Etienne's attack rhythm was impossible to guard against. Just a second before the huge crocodile was about to pull Chu Hen into its mouth, a gust of cold wind suddenly rose. A pair of incomparably sharp claws covered in black scales directly pressed down on the head of the huge crocodile below. This Everyone in Innocence Valley widened their eyes, and their eyes were filled with shock. Roar! Immediately after, a similarly peerless fierce beast let out a long howl. An ancient lizard dragon with wings on its back and black scales all over its body appeared under the sky without any warning. Fierce beasts fought and killed each other. At the same time, what shocked everyone was that the Tianai saber in Chu Hen's hand had disappeared without a trace, and in its place was a long spear surrounded by a strange black light. This long spear had a strange appearance. The spearhead was a sharp rhombus, and the middle part was the spine of a demonic beast. It was sharp and domineering. Drip, godly spear. Shintu Etienne spat out a few words coldly. Dripping godly spear? The other people in Innocence Valley were even more shocked. First the blue ran sword, then the Tianai saber, and now the dripping godly spear. Mount Kunliu, the state of conquering cloud, and the Heaven Imperial Dynasty's 3 supreme treasures had all fallen into Chu Hen's hands. Just who is he? Xieleng frowned and shook his head. Violent Bear, are you sure the person you met last time was him? Green Snake asked. Meanwhile, Violent Bear was already dumbfounded. Even he was confused. He subconsciously glanced at Yi Yao, who was in the Tai Chi Yin Yang array, and then at Chu Hen. Now that he thought about it, it seemed that there were many things that weren't the case. However, the situation in front of them caused everyone in Innocence Valley to lose their ability to think. The power that Chu Hen displayed was enough to make them take him seriously. Boom! The huge crocodile and the ancient lizard dragon fought each other in the water, madly tearing at each other and exploding into chaotic, violent impacts. Chapter 862. Rumble, the mountains were flattened, the forests were crushed, and the waters in all directions were swept outwards with the force of a landslide. Incomparably wild waves swept through the heavenly river, the forests and valleys in all directions. The surrounding strange ancient buildings and towers collapsed, the mountains trembled, and an enormous crater was blasted into the ground. The powerful attack of the 5 elements token was once again intercepted by the draining god's spear. Water splashed everywhere and waves of air rose. At this moment, no one in Innocence Valley dared to underestimate Chu Hen anymore. The 5 elements token's 5 consecutive fierce attacks were all neutralized by Chu Hen. This was definitely not something that could be achieved with luck alone. Shintu Etienne's robes fluttered in the wind. His gaze was like a sword, and he wished he could see through Chu Hen. Who exactly are you? At this moment, no one believed that Chu Hen had come looking for trouble for no reason. It was even more impossible to say that there was no enmity between the two. Buzz. Chu Hen held the draining god's spear in high spirit. He pointed the tip of the spear at Shintu Etienne, and replied in a provocative and disdainful tone, "What do you think?" Shintu Etienne also replied with an indifferent sneer, "No matter who you are, you can only say that you're unlucky to have met me, Shintu Etienne." Even though everyone in Innocence Valley was confused and suspicious about Chu Hen's origins, Shintu Etienne was still arrogant and unwilling to say anything more. However, Shintu Etienne was still arrogant and unwilling to say anything. His gaze once again returned to the indifference of looking down on everything, and he looked at Chu Hen as if he was a dead man. Whoosh! In an instant, the 5 tokens that had been scattered outside returned to Shintu Etienne's body with the force of the wind whistling. "Why don't I kill you first, then guess your goal?" "That will depend on whether you have the ability to do so," Chu Hen replied coldly, not showing any weakness. "Unfortunately, the blue sky sword, Tianai blade, and draining god's spear are not enough for you to fight me." As soon as he finished speaking, Shintu Etienne's arms flipped outwards, and a formidable fluctuation of energy suffused out. 5 command tokens revolved around him like a wheel of fire. The 5 elements medallion shone brightly, each of them emitting a different colored radiance. Buzz, the endless might of the Saint artifact enveloped Shintu Etienne, causing the world to lose its color. It was as if 5 divine rainbows had gathered around Shintu Etienne. They were gorgeous and dazzling, and they emitted an extremely shocking and majestic aura. I will let you know that the 5 elements insignia, ranked 10th on the Saint weapon ranking, is not something that your scrap metal can compare to. Shintu Etienne's eyes were filled with surging killing intent. The true origin energy in his body surged like waves, and all of it fused into the 5 tokens. Traces of a manic rhythm appeared in the heavens and the earth. The power of the 5 elements was controlled by Shintu Etienne, and he seemed to be holding the might of lightning in his hands. He slowly raised his crossed arms, and then suddenly swung them outwards forcefully, 5 elements as one. Die. Buzz, in an instant, the 5 tokens that lingered around Shintu Etienne shot out at the same time. They were so fast that they were faster than divine arrows that had left the bow. The 5 tokens erupted with light that resembled heavenly rainbows. They rotated rapidly, and then they rapidly drew together. Water and fire fused, earth and wood fused. Accompanied by a torrential 5-colored light, a giant golden crocodile leaped out of it. Unlike the giant crocodile that had just charged out of the water below, this giant creature's fangs, claws, and scales were all extremely sharp. As it moved, green vines rapidly climbed up the giant crocodile's body. The green vines were tightly wrapped around it, forming an incomparably sturdy rattan armor. Outside the rattan armor, the power of earth seeped out, once again forming a thick layer of brown stone armor. Buzz, waves of heat soared into the sky, and scorching flames covered the giant crocodile's body. It was like a ferocious creature that could burn the heavens. The combined attack that gathered the 5 powerful forces of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth could be said to have caused the sky to fall into darkness. Everyone's eyes were only left on the giant crocodile that was violently tearing the sky apart. Let's see if he can survive this. Violent Bear, who was outside the battle, said fiercely. Xieling, Xueqin, and Green Snake also had grave expressions, and their faces were filled with solemnity. This kind of battle had already exceeded the scope of their abilities. This was also the first time they had seen Shintu Etienne unleash the full power of the 5 elements order. To be able to defeat the young master to such an extent, this person should be proud. Xueqin said with narrowed eyes. The other 3 also nodded inwardly, expressing their agreement. That's about it. It's over. Rumble. However, at almost the same time, the sky behind Chu Hen also darkened. A gale suddenly rose, and dark clouds surged. Boundless ferocious energy filled the sky, stirring up the airflow in all directions. Chu Hen held the dripping god's spear diagonally, and his true origin violet palace opened wide. Vast true origin energy rapidly poured into it. Roar! The ice-cold airflow caused the temperature to plummet, and the ferocious energy was shocking. An ancient lizard dragon with a pair of wings on its back, and its body covered in black scales, once again appeared in everyone's vision. Roar! Immediately after, another terrifying tiger roar pierced through everyone's ears. Next to the ancient lizard dragon, a white saber-toothed giant tiger appeared indistinctly. The 2 ferocious beasts stood on the left and right sides of Chu Hen like guardian beasts, and their auras were soaring. How could this be? The expressions of Xieling, Guangxiong, Green Snake, and the others changed again. No matter how strong Chu Hen was, it was absolutely impossible for him to unleash the full power of 2 ranked sacred weapons at the same time. What was even more shocking was that the dripping god spear in Chu Hen's hand had turned into the Tianai saber. The speed of the exchange between the 2 was so fast that no one noticed it. 5 elements order? Then let's see who's stronger. Chu Hen's aura rose, and his eyes were like stars that pierced through heaven and earth. Roar! Roar! In an instant, the ancient lizard dragon and the saber-toothed giant tiger rushed out at the same time, and their ferocious auras soared into the sky. 1 second before they collided with the 5 elements giant crocodile, the ancient lizard dragon and the saber-toothed giant tiger first met, the dense black shadow and the dazzling silver light were like two nebulas merging together. The Tianai saber and the dripping god spear in Chu Hen's hands continuously changed back and forth. One was a spear, the other a saber. Buzz! In an instant, an even more furious aura swept through the sky, and the two balls of light were like two sunbeams. What? Everyone in Innocence Valley turned pale with fright. Even Shintu Etienne's face was filled with disbelief. Amidst the dazzling light, a colossal creature pounced on the five elements giant crocodile. This colossal creature had the body of a saber-toothed giant tiger, the wings of an ancient lizard dragon, and the dense and sturdy black scales. It was the combination of an ancient lizard dragon and a saber-toothed giant tiger. It was like an ancient and mysterious species. Could it be that he fused the Tianai saber and the dripping god spear together? A trembling voice came out of Green Snake's mouth. His words woke him up from his reverie. While he was in a daze, an indescribable shock followed. No wonder Chu Hen was able to swap the Tianai saber and the dripping god spear back and forth, as if he had divine help. No wonder the power of the two saint artifacts could be unfolded and combined so easily. There was only one answer. The two seemed to be one, and the two saint artifacts were actually one. Hiss, without any extra time to think, the new generation saber-toothed giant tiger, with wings on its back and covered in scales, unleashed a terrifying ferocious aura and collided with the giant crocodile that had fused the power of the five elements. Chapter 863. Bang! Earth-shattering heavenly stars. Terrifying forces converged like two storms that collided head-on. In an instant, the heavens and the earth shook and the sky trembled. The saber-toothed tiger, which had a pair of wings on its back and was covered in thick scales, launched an incomparably terrifying battle against the crocodile that was fused with the energy of the five elements. The entire heavens and the earth were instantly plunged into a boundless hurricane. Light flew everywhere, and the sound waves surged into the sky. Furious roars that shook the heavens resounded, and it was like two peerless ferocious creatures from the depths of hell were fighting intensely. Unprecedented shock covered the faces of everyone from Innocence Valley. Even Shintu Etienne withdrew his playful expression from before. The Tianai saber and the dripping god spear. The two ranked saint artifacts had actually combined into one. This was something that none of them had expected. Bang! Bang! Layer upon layer of powerful shockwaves whistled through the heavens and the earth, sweeping in all directions. The mountains and rivers below were crushed and flattened one after another. Large areas of the forest were transformed into powder, rivers flowed in reverse, and waterfalls flowed in reverse. The violent, tsunami-like shockwaves surged towards Chu Hen and Shintu Etienne. The two of them were like boulders in the midst of a storm, and they both emanated majestic might that was as immovable as a mountain. "You can't defeat me." A ruthless light flashed in Shintu Etienne's eyes. He crossed his palms, and 5 pillars of light of different colors surged out of his body. They intertwined with each other and rose into the sky. His aura multiplied once more. After that, the energy released by the 5-element crocodile pressed forward as well. However, in the next instant, Chu Hen flipped his palm and sent the dripping god spear forward. Swish! The swift and fierce saint's spear was like an arrow that had left the bow, and it transformed into a condensed beam of divine light that tore through the sky. OM! The dripping god spear and the Tianai saber constantly switched back and forth. Strands of intertwining cyclones of light gathered at the tip of the blade, and they spun rapidly. The shocking destructive force seemed as if it was assisted by the gods. The unstoppable divine light pierced directly into the winged tiger and struck the 5-element crocodile. Boom! The void was turbulent, and the power was like a flood breaking through a dam. The invisible giant crocodile was the first to explode, and the magnificent power of the 5 elements splashed all over the sky. It was colorful like a rainbow after the rain. Roar, the dual-winged saber-toothed tiger took advantage of the situation and pounced toward Shintu Etienne with a ferocious might that shook the heavens. Shintu Etienne's expression changed, and he stretched out his palms as a boundless aura assaulted him like a tide. Break! Hiss! The surrounding space violently distorted for a moment. When it was less than 100 meters away from Shintu Etienne, the dual-winged saber-toothed tiger was crushed and crushed. The power that erupted in that instant was like a star splitting apart, and thousands of light waves splashed everywhere. The two beams of light bounced backward, one on the left and one on the right. Whoosh! Chu Hen spun around and caught the draining spirit spear in his hand. On the other hand, when Shintu Etienne held the 5-element token in his hand, a tempestuous impact surged over as well. Shintu Etienne immediately retreated, flying 2 to 3 li away. Looking at the intense scene in front of them, the people of Innocence Valley could not help but feel shocked. Even though it seemed like both sides were equally matched on the surface, this was definitely not a good thing for Shintu Etienne. The 5-element token, which was ranked in the top 10 of the divine weapon ranking, could not suppress the joint attack of the Tianai saber and the draining spirit spear. What they did not know was that the Tianai saber and the draining spirit spear were not as simple as they used to be. Whoosh! Chu Hen looked down from above, and the draining spirit spear pointed at Shintu Etienne in front of him. It emitted an unparalleled sharpness. The so-called young master of Innocence Valley is nothing more than this. Nothing more than this. It was an extremely powerful provocation. The invisible spear light seemed to have the power to pierce through the soul. Shintu Etienne's expression darkened slightly. 5-colored light flowed around his body, and his hand, which was gripping the 5-element token, turned slightly pale. After attacking for a long time without success, their morale was affected. On the other hand, Chu Hen became more and more courageous as he fought. Don't celebrate too early. Shintu Etienne's face was filled with dense killing intent. On the other side, Xiaoling, Xuechen, Green Snake, and the others also quietly released powerful true inner force. At this time, they did not dare to continue watching from the sidelines. Buzz! Suddenly, at this moment, an obscure wave of power was released from the direction of the Great Path Divine Stone. Everyone was shocked, and they immediately turned their attention in that direction. The peerless giant stone tablet was covered with divine runes and secret inscriptions. Tens of thousands of runes and numbers were swimming like electric arcs, shining with a dazzling holy light. Buzz! Buzz! The obscure rhythm became stronger and stronger, rising steadily and growing continuously. It gave people the feeling that there was an undercurrent surging violently at the bottom of the deep sea. The Tai Chi yin-yang diagram floating in the sky also glowed with a strange light, and its rotation speed was increasing steadily. The clouds in the sky moved and the wind blew. In an instant, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth within a radius of more than 10,000 meters gathered in the sky above the Tai Chi diagram. Countless strands of yin and yang energy revolved rapidly around the thin figure in the center of the diagram. In the sky, lightning flashed, thunder rumbled, and a storm blew. The entire world became dark. Burning anticipation and restlessness quietly rushed into Shintu Etienne's heart. After being silent for more than a month, it was finally coming. Chu Hen's eyes were also filled with heavy solemnity. He had no idea what would happen next. Boom! When the power released by the fragment of the Great Path Divine Stone reached a peak, a divine radiance that illuminated the sky completely erupted and poured out. The earth trembled, and the world changed color because of it. The Tai Chi yin-yang diagram floating in the sky rotated at an extremely fast speed. Circle after circle of illusory light separated and spread upwards layer by layer. The thin and delicate figure at the center of the diagram was covered in intertwining black and white yin and yang energy. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, and her beautiful temperament revealed a trace of holiness. Clang! At this moment, the nebula storm in the sky formed an enormous Tai Chi diagram that covered the sky and covered the sun. Tens of thousands of golden rays of light pierced through the clouds and descended towards the figure. The figure seemed to be bathed in divine light, baptized by the golden radiance, like a holy and spiritual being. Thunder seemed to rumble in everyone's ears. Immediately after, the Tai Chi yin-yang diagram formed by the nebula storm in the sky slowly separated, like a heavenly door had been opened. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts roared and flashed across the sky. At the center of the berserk power, countless silver and white lightning bolts gave off a shocking might. "It's the divine tribulation," an excited voice cried out from one of the dozen or so black-clothed experts. "The divine physique is about to be formed." The divine physique was about to be formed. These few words were like a heavy hammer that struck the hearts of everyone present. Chu Hen, Shintu Etienne, and the others all stared at the sky, their heartbeats accelerating. Divine physique incarnation. Since ancient times, this was definitely a magnificent feat that could shake the entire eastern continent. Clang! In the next moment, under everyone's trembling gazes, the lightning bolts that had gathered above the Tai Chi yin-yang diagram pierced through the sky and directly attacked the thin figure below. The majestic scene was like that of a terrifying lightning dragon charging towards them angrily. Its aura surged into the sky, like a galaxy falling from the sky. Chu Hen's heart jumped to his throat and he clenched his fists tightly, not daring to look straight at it. He was truly afraid that if the divine tribulation descended, that beautiful figure would vanish into thin air. Buzz! Just as the divine tribulation was less than 20 meters away from its target, the figure that had been silent for more than a month suddenly opened her eyes. An otherworldly aura spread out. She raised her head slightly, and a pair of clear, pitch-black eyes immediately surged with yin and yang energy. The yin and yang energy intertwined and quickly gathered at the center of her brows, turning into a Tai Chi diagram rune that was about the size of a fingernail. In an instant, an extremely shocking bloodline boundary power surged out. The invisible might was like a huge wave that soared into the sky. Bang! Boom! Chapter 864. Boom! An ear-piercing explosion resounded through the heavens. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the Saint Tribulation heavenly lightning that pierced through the heavens like the Milky Way came to an abrupt halt. Like a shattered stone pillar, it was instantly shattered. Thousands of lightning arcs bloomed like fireworks. An incomparably huge thunderous fireball exploded, illuminating the sky and shocking the heavens, accompanied by the rumbling of wind and lightning. The Tai Chi yin-yang formation that hovered in the sky released an incomparably powerful rhythm. The girl in the center had eyes like stars, and her long hair danced in the wind. Her entire body was surrounded by powerful yin and yang energy, especially the strange Tai Chi rune between her brows. It was full of spiritual energy, and it was a transcendent aura of a saint. Boom! Then, the thousands of yin and yang energy that enveloped her swept out in all directions like a storm. The enormous Tai Chi formation was like ripples on the surface of water, spreading endlessly and sweeping through the heavens. Retreat! The dozen or so black-clothed experts from Innocence Valley who guarded the formation were all pushed back by this powerful wave of energy. Wherever the Tai Chi formation spread, the space distorted and shook uneasily. Apart from the stone tablet formed by the great Tao Divine stone fragment, all the ancient buildings and mountain ranges below were flattened. What a terrifying bloodline boundary! Is this the power of a saint physique? Xieling, Qingxi, Xuechen, and the rest of Innocence Valley were shocked. Shintu Etienne had lost his composure from before, and it was replaced by dense pleasant surprise and fervor. For the sake of this moment, he'd planned meticulously, exhausted countless painstaking efforts, and consumed numerous resources and spirit pills just for the sake of this day. Buzz! The heavens surged, and a divine radiance flashed. Enveloped by the Saint Tribulation heavenly lightning, The delicate figure emitted a spiritual energy that had never been seen before. Endless yin and yang energy and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged into her body like a whale sucking in water. Everyone present seemed to be able to sense the powerful bloodline boundary power that came from her body. Whoosh! In an instant, a circle of dark red light impurities leaked out and blended into the air, crushing into pieces. The vicious medicinal properties of the heaven asphyxiation pill that imprisoned her profound bloodline were instantly expelled without a trace. She was like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. Her mortal body shed away, and her saintly body took shape. Supreme ultimate holy body. Success. Everyone in Honesty Valley was extremely excited. Ha 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 ha! Shinto Etienne roared with laughter and spread his arms. He was in high spirits. Excitement, fanaticism, greed, and ambition were all undisguised on his face. He had created a divine body. He, Shinto Etienne, had personally created a saint physique. Soon, this divine body would be his. How could Shinto Etienne not be delighted? When Chu Hen saw Shinto Etienne's greedy and complacent face, his heart was filled with disgust. Just for this day, the other party had imposed all the pain on an innocent girl, treating her as a puppet, a killing machine, living a life like a walking corpse. An ice-cold murderous intent gushed out from Chu Hen's body. His deep eyes turned incomparably sharp. What? You still want to kill me? Shinto Etienne sneered. He glanced sideways, and his face was full of disdain. If I were you, I would turn around and run. Humph! Chu Hen snorted lightly. His expression was full of provocation. Unfortunately, I'm not you. It's indeed a pity. You've already lost your chance to live. Shinto Etienne waved his hand and shouted, Take his lowly life. Yes, young master. Many experts from Honesty Valley accepted the order. Without the slightest hesitation, they all erupted with intense murderous intent and charged at Chu Hen. Die, you little thief! At the same time, Yi Yao's body also released a vast and majestic aura. Incomparably vigorous true essence surged out of her body. She held white profound yang energy in one hand, and cold black profound yin energy in the other. The yin and yang energies were all under her control. Whoosh! Then, Yi Yao pushed her hands outwards, and a huge Tai Chi yin-yang diagram spread out in the void. The heavens and the earth lost their color. The huge Tai Chi diagram spread out like a wave, directly extending to the feet of the dozen or so experts from Honesty Valley. From afar, it looked like they were stepping on the Tai Chi diagram. A strong wind blew, and the Tai Chi diagram began to rotate clockwise. Incomparably powerful energy pulsed rhythmically, like a brewing undercurrent in the deep sea. Shinto Etienne's expression suddenly changed. A bad premonition immediately welled up in his heart. But before he could react, Yi Yao suddenly turned into an afterimage and disappeared. As she flashed away, a powerful aura swept through the sky. Sky dance of the moon, thousand illusions, whoosh! The intense energy waves caused the space around every expert from Honesty Valley to distort. In the next instant, an illusory phantom appeared behind each of them. It was like a dream, real and fake at the same time. A chilling aura that made one shudder followed. In an instant, all the clones and phantoms attacked at the same time. Their ice-cold, merciless palm energy landed solidly on the backs of every expert from Honesty Valley. Boom! Bang! A dozen or so muffled explosions almost overlap. Blood splattered everywhere, and screams of surprise followed. What? Shinto Etienne and his 4 trusted protectors all turned pale with fright. The sudden sneak attack pierced through the chests of all the experts from Honesty Valley, shattering their spines. Like birds with broken wings, they fell from the sky one after another. Before they could even attack Chu Hen, they were all heavily injured. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Immediately after, the illusory afterimages that were scattered around quickly gathered together and overlapped with each other. once again transforming into that elegant and peerlessly beautiful figure. Witnessing this scene, Shintu Etienne's pupils shrank slightly. His face was filled with disbelief and shock. You? Who's your? Yi Yao retorted coldly. Then, she looked at Chu Hen with her clear eyes and shouted happily, "Big brother Chu Hen, I knew you'd come. Big brother Chu Hen," clang. Yi Yao's voice was not loud, but when it reached Shintu Etienne's ears, it was like a bolt from the blue. The two of them knew each other? What was going on? After all, even if Yi Yao's bloodline had been upgraded to a saint physique and the side effects of the heaven damnation pill had disappeared, the soul separation powder's effect was still there. She should still be that obedient but? Could it be? Boom! Shintu Etienne's mind seemed to be struck by lightning. His mind was in a mess, and his heart suddenly trembled. He suddenly understood something. I've been tricked. As soon as he finished speaking, a cold laugh followed. Looks like you've finally realized. Shintu, young master, swoosh. At the same time, a divine sword that flickered with green shadows shot through the sky like a shooting star. The overlapping sword markings revolved swiftly around the blade of the sword, and the might of the sword was so swift and fierce that it was like a swordfish that tore through the wind and waves. Shintu Etienne's expression was extremely gloomy as he struck out with the 5-element order, and he directly flicked the blue sky sword to the left. Boundless hatred and killing intent arose along with his rage. Bastard, I'll tear you into pieces! Swish, but in the next instant, a circle of ripples arose in the sky, and then a blurry afterimage suddenly appeared by the side of the blue sky sword that was flicked away. Flying Immortal's flash technique. The afterimage rapidly condensed, and it revealed Chu Hen's handsome face that was covered in a ridiculing expression. Unfortunately, your time is up. Chu Hen's figure flashed as he held the blue sky sword in his hand, and then his gaze turned cold as a ruthless light flashed within it. A fierce sword light flashed like a flash of light as it assaulted Shintu Etienne's left. It was so swift that Shintu Etienne was completely unable to defend against it. Hiss! Chapter 865. Hiss! A string of scarlet blood danced in the air, and the cold and merciless blue sky sword cut through Shintu Etienne's ankle as if it was cutting through clay. Shintu Etienne's leg tendon was directly cut off. In an instant, incomparably intense pain spread through his entire body along his sensory nerve. Shintu Etienne's pupils constricted, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets as a painful scream resounded. Young master! On the other side, Xieleng, Xuechen, Qingxi, and Kuang Xiong were all extremely shocked. They felt as if they had been struck by lightning, and their minds were in a mess. Bastard, stop! How dare you injure my young master? I'll destroy your Mount Kunliu as well. However, their furious shouts were of no use at all. Swoosh! After cutting off Shintu Etienne's left leg tendon, Chu Hen's sword aura rose again. It was as if a phantom was moving through the heavens and the earth, and the blue sky sword turned into a flowing shadow that flashed out and arrived at Shintu Etienne's right. Shintu Etienne saw that the situation was bad, and he was just about to endure the pain and retreat when an afterimage silently appeared on his right. The flying immortal was as fast as lightning. Clatter! His powerful palm grabbed the hilt of the blue sky sword once again, and the sharp holy sword slashed through the air. Shintu Etienne's right ankle once again revealed a wound that was so deep that the bone could be seen. Fresh blood sprayed out, and intense pain pierced his heart. Shintu Etienne's body swayed, and his eyes were scarlet red as he roared angrily, "Get lost, humph!" A cold smile appeared on Chu Hen's face, and he replied with a slightly mocking tone, "Your current appearance is exactly what I'm looking forward to." Killing intent that had been silent for a long time. Rage that had been brewing for a long time. At this moment, it was all exerted on Shintu Etienne. Swoosh! Two blurry afterimages flashed through the air one after another, and a series of overlapping sword shadows dazzled everyone's eyes. In an instant, The 5 elements token in Shintu Etienne's hand flew out of his hand. Along with an even more ear-piercing scream, the tendons and veins in his hands were severed, scarlet red blood flickered dazzlingly, and the sound of flesh being cut open could be heard clearly. Bang! The cold wind howled and dust filled the air. Boundless, bleak, and ghastly waves of air covered the heavens and the earth. Chu Hen's indifferent gaze was like an icy cold blade, and he looked at Shintu Etienne, whose entire body was gradually dyed red with blood, as if he was looking at a dog. Torture! No mercy at all. With the tendons in his arms and legs crippled, Shintu Etienne danced about wildly. The jade crown on his head had fallen off, and his hair was disheveled. He had completely lost his previous graceful bearing. Kill him, cut him into 1,000 pieces, Shintu Etienne roared furiously. Xieling, Xueqin, and the others charged over hastily, and all of them were furious to the extreme. This was the first time they'd seen Shintu Etienne suffer such a setback. From the beginning until the end, Shintu Etienne could be said to be an omnipotent existence in their eyes. But today they were defeated so miserably. Don't you dare hurt my young master. Die! The 4 of them who were furious couldn't care about anything else at all, and all of them erupted with powerful attacks. Chu Hen's gaze turned cold while the corners of his mouth curled into an arc of disdain. After that, an especially powerful destructive sword aura surged out from his body. Sword celestial, myriad sword calamity. Swoosh! His body spun swiftly like a top, and the airflow in the heavens and the earth stirred and transformed into a tornado. After that, a myriad of sword lights descended like rain, and they flashed swiftly in all directions. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The icy cold, dense, and fierce rain of sword lights was unstoppable. Xieling, Qingxi, Guangxiong, and Xueqin were unable to resist at all, and they were blasted flying one after another. Over 10 wounds of varying sizes instantly appeared on their bodies. Especially Guangxiong, who was injured, he was forcefully pierced into a sieve by the powerful sword lights. After a short and rapid shrill cry, he exploded into a ball of blood mist and was minced into pieces by the sword qi. The expressions of the other 3 changed violently, and they were terrified to the extreme. The disparity in strength caused them to not even have the qualifications to get close to Chu Hen. The rain of sword lights rained down randomly, causing Shintu Etienne to be covered in blood once more. His demeanor of being in control of the situation was naturally gone, and only his scarlet eyes were filled with hatred. Bastard! He roared hysterically. Let me see how powerless you are, Shintu. Young master. Accompanied by an icy cold sneer, Chu Hen flipped his wrist, and the blue sky sword in his hand pierced through the air and shot out swiftly like a divine ray of light. Shintu Etienne's pupils constricted rapidly. Hiss! The sharp blade mercilessly pierced through his opponent's chest. The powerful force of inertia caused him to rapidly move backwards. A large mouthful of blood sprayed from his mouth, and his body bent into an arc as he powerlessly flew towards a mountain behind him. Bang! In the next instant, the blue sky sword directly nailed Shintu Etienne to the cliff of a mountain. Dust flew into the air, and spider web-like cracks appeared on the cliff. Shintu Etienne was firmly hung on the cliff. His chest had been pierced through, and his limbs were hanging limply. His entire body was covered in blood, and he was unable to move. He looked pitiful and laughable. However, not a trace of pity could be seen in Chu Hen's eyes. It was even to the extent that, in his opinion, this wasn't enough to completely vent his anger. Up until today, Shintu Etienne had brought this upon himself. On the other side, Yi Yao was watching Chu Hen's actions. Her heart felt as if it would melt under his gaze. She knew that everything Chu Hen had done was for her. He wanted to return double the damage that Shintu Etienne had inflicted on her. Today, Chu Hen had broken the tendons in Shintu Etienne's hands and legs in front of Yi Yao, all for the sake of seeking justice for her. In other people's eyes, Chu Hen's methods were cruel. But in Yi Yao's eyes, they were indescribably touched and warm. Yi Yao held back the tears in her eyes and flew to Chu Hen's side. "Big brother Chu Hen, are you hurt?" Chu Hen shook his head. The coldness between his brows eased a little, and some gentleness surged out. Shintu Etienne, who had been nailed to the cliff by the blue sky sword, glared at the two people in front of him. He was furious and extremely unwilling. He'd lost. The resourceful young master of Innocence Valley, who was good at setting up traps, had suffered a crushing defeat this time. He, who had always won with his schemes, had been beaten at his own game this time. Shintu Etienne had placed too much faith in the soul separation powder. But he hadn't expected that Yi Yao would still dare to return to his side after breaking free of the soul separation powder's control. In the Eastern Victory Province, there really weren't many people who dared to gamble with him like this. Yet, he'd met Chu Hen. In fact, in the entire plan, Shintu Etienne had been advancing step by step. But in the end, man proposes, God disposes. Before the ancient desolate heaven region opened, the insignificant Chu Hen hadn't been able to attract his attention. But today, Chu Hen had become a fatal knife that pierced straight into his heart. One wrong step and he'd lost everything. Years of hard work, gone in an instant. He was only one step away from his goal. Just this last step made it so that Shintu Etienne didn't even have the chance to turn things around. I won't let you guys have an easy time, humph. Looking at Shintu Etienne's resentful look, Chu Hen looked down on everything and smiled coldly. At the same time, a piercingly cold, killing intent flowed out. Damn it! Xiaoling, Green Snake, and the others were instantly anxious. Unfortunately, they couldn't even protect themselves. They didn't even have the ability to stop Chu Hen. A cold wind suddenly blew, and the world was filled with a murderous aura. Buzz, a strand of violent energy quietly gathered at the tip of Chu Hen's finger. In front of him, Shintu Etienne's eyes trembled, and his viciousness revealed dense panic. Chapter 866. A strand of dense light quietly gathered at the tip of Chu Hen's finger. His expression was indifferent, and his ice-cold gaze was directed at Shintu Etienne as if he was looking at a corpse. A cold wind blew, and a murderous aura spread in all directions. When he received the killing intent from Chu Hen's gaze, Shintu Etienne immediately panicked. He was both shocked and furious. However, he was powerless to struggle with his broken limbs. Coupled with the fact that he was pinned to the mountain wall by the blue ran sword, he was like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. On the other side, Green Snake, Xiaoling, and Xuechen were extremely shocked. However, they, who were also heavily injured, could only watch helplessly. They couldn't even take care of themselves. Chu Hen slowly raised his arm, and restless true energy danced at the tip of his finger. Shintu Etienne's pupils constricted, and his scarlet eyes were as ferocious as a wolf's. Boom! Suddenly, an incomparably heavy sound reverberated in the area behind them without any warning. Everyone was shocked. They saw the mountain collapse and the earth crack. Dust flew everywhere as a huge shadow heavily smashed into a mountain. The shocking impact directly caused more than half of the mountain to collapse. Gravel rained down from the sky. Amidst the flying gravel, a huge colorful snake crashed heavily onto the ground. It was dragged for a few hundred meters before it finally came to a stop. The Heavenly Serpent Clan's Lan Nua? Chu Hen couldn't help but be stunned. The colorful snake that was covered in injuries and had an extremely weak aura was none other than the Heavenly Serpent Clan's Lamia, who had intercepted him outside Roar. Before Chu Hen, Yi Yao, and the others could react, a majestic aura that was like a mountain surged over. Violent winds blew, and airwaves stacked up. A majestic aura swept through the sky, and a majestic giant beast swept through the air. It was a domineering lion mantis with 4 claws that flickered with golden light. Even though it was Chu Hen's first time seeing such a ferocious creature, a mantis was a powerful species that possessed an extremely ancient bloodline. This golden lion cheese level was definitely not low. Brother Chu Hen, there's someone up there, Yi Yao said solemnly. I saw it, Chu Hen replied. The golden lion centipede soon arrived in the sky, and on its back stood a few young figures with extraordinary auras. The person in the lead was actually a cold and beautiful woman. She had a beautiful face and an exceptional temperament. She constantly exuded a nobility that ordinary people could not touch. A mere ant of the Heavenly Serpent clan dares to block my way. The woman looked down at Lan Nuo of the Heavenly Serpent clan with an aloof attitude. His aura was so strong that no one could compete with him. Xieling, Qing Shi, and Xue Chen's expressions changed again and again. They looked at the woman with fear and dread in their eyes. The former clenched his fists and spat out a few words with a heavy voice. Lei Jixin, Hua. The speaker did not mean anything, but the listener took it to heart. These 3 words quietly entered Chu Hen's ears, instantly stirring up waves in his heart. Chu Hen had only heard Lung Lingyan mention this name once, but he still had a deep impression of it. Thunder Saint Palace. One of the 3 giants of the Eastern Victory State. Lei Jixin. A monster who possessed the Thunder Soul sacred physique. These were the top geniuses of the Eastern Victory State. They were said to be as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Background, talent, and status. She was truly an existence with a myriad of halos. Chu Hen was secretly amazed. As expected of someone from the Thunder Saint Palace, such a strong aura could really be said to be overwhelming. Chu Hen, are you guys alright? At this moment, Haozi's familiar voice also came from afar. Mount Kunliu, the people from the Ice Mystic sect were also rushing over here. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows. It was obvious that the dark flame barrier outside had been broken by the people from the Thunder Saint Palace. How are you guys? Did it go well? Immediately, Luo Mingshang, Long Xuanshuang, Mu Feng, Haozi, and the others arrived by the 2 of them. But seeing that everyone was fine, Chu Hen could not help but relax a lot. Yi Yao's eyes also lit up. She shouted in surprise, Sister Xian Shuang, you're here too? Hearing the familiar greeting, Long Xuanshuang smiled in relief. It seems that Chu Hen saved you. It's good that you're all right. Danjun, Haozi, Hua Shui, and the others looked at Yi Yao with surprise and envy. Since Yi Yao was safe, it meant that the original plan had succeeded. In other words, the limit of Yi Yao's bloodline had been upgraded from the mystic physique to the Tai Chi holy physique. This was the long-cherished wish of countless people. Now that they thought about it, the suffering that Yi Yao had suffered previously had been repaid and made up for. What's the situation outside? Chu Hen asked the crowd. Lung Lingyan looked at Lei Jixin, who was on the golden lion mantis, and replied cautiously, we were fighting with the Heavenly Serpent clan and the Tiger Stripe clan outside. I didn't expect that the Thunder Saint Palace would suddenly come here. They were the ones who broke the dark flame barrier. That little girl is truly ruthless. It's such a pity for that stupid tiger. He was practically chopped into 8 pieces. Mu Feng said sarcastically in a low voice. The stupid tiger was naturally Nuya of the Tiger Stripe clan. As for the serpentine woman, Lan Nuo, she was also on the verge of death. Chu Hen nodded. The appearance of the Thunder Saint Palace was indeed surprising. Since Yi Yao had been saved, Chu Hen thought that it would be better for him to leave. At the same time, the people from the Thunder Saint Palace also saw the situation clearly. When they saw Shintu Etienne, who was nailed to the mountain wall by the blue ran sword, they could not help but reveal astonished expressions. Everyone glanced at each other, and they were slightly astounded. Even the tendons in his arms and legs had been cut. The dignified young master of the Innocence Valley had suffered such inhumane torture. Shintu Etienne? Lei Jixin raised her eyelids slightly, and there seemed to be a hint of mockery in the corner of her mouth. Looks like I've overestimated the ability of the Innocence Valley. Although his chest had been pierced by a sword, Shintu Etienne's cultivation was not weak, and he still had a breath left. When he heard Lei Jixin's mockery, Shintu Etienne gritted his teeth, and the veins on his face bulged. He then shouted, Lei Jixin, kill them for me, and I'll promise you anything. His sinister voice was filled with resentment and anger. The people from Mount Kunliu could not help but change their expressions, and their hearts were in their throats. If the Thunder Saint Palace were to make a move on them, it would be very bad. Roar. Chapter 867. Lei Jixin, help me kill them. This young master will agree to anything you ask. Shintu Etienne's voice was filled with resentment. Veins popped out on his forehead as he roared hysterically. On Mount Kunliu, everyone from the Ice Xian sect couldn't help but feel nervous. However, Lei Jixin's gaze didn't waver at all. She didn't even look at Chu Hen and the others. She replied indifferently, Let me ask you, what does your Innocence Valley have that my Thunder Saint Palace doesn't? And what do you, Shintu Etienne, have that catches my eye? Her undisguised arrogance was displayed in front of everyone. Just the words Thunder Saint Palace and Sacred Lightning Body alone was enough for her to look down on everyone else. Lei Jixin's heart was higher than the sky. But it was undeniable that she definitely had the right to be arrogant. On Mount Kunliu, everyone from the Ice Xian sect heaved a sigh of relief, but at the same time, they felt a little depressed. The reason why Lei Jixin didn't make a move was because she disdained them. She disdained Shintu Etienne's request, and even more disdained to attack Chu Hen and the others. She was truly condescending and aloof. This feeling of being disregarded was quite frustrating. Shintu Etienne's expression became even more gloomy. He roared again, Great Tao Divine Stone Fragment. I'll give you the fragment of the Great Tao Divine Stone. Kill them, oh? Lei Jixin's thin brows twitched. She coldly swept her gaze towards the enormous ancient stone tablet that stood at the peak of the mountain like a moon surrounded by stars. It seems that the fragment of the Great Tao Divine Stone isn't in your hands either. You, Shintu Etienne was furious. His eyes were about to spit fire. At this moment, an illusory black pillar of light descended from the sky, landing on the giant tablet like a rainbow. Whoosh! In an instant, a powerful shockwave spread out in all directions like ripples on the surface of water, with the giant tablet as the center. The earth quaked and the mountains swayed. Spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the ground. What a powerful aura! Even the people of the Lightning Saint Palace couldn't help narrowing their eyes. Then, the black pillar of light rapidly converged, and a graceful young figure landed on the fragment of the Great Tao Divine Stone. If I'm not mistaken, there seemed to be a Saint Tribulation here just now. There was a hint of surprise in his cynical tone. The appearance of this person had taken away the brilliance from Lei Jixin. It was also as dazzling as the stars. His transcendent aura and demeanor shocked everyone present. Han Ichuan, a slightly heavy voice came from the Thunder Saint Palace's team. Upon hearing these 3 words, the faces of everyone from Mount Kunliu and the mysterious ice sect once again surged with fear and dread. It's Han Ichuan from Palace of Jihua. Shan Jin clenched his fists and said in a deep voice. Jihua Palace? The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly. They were also one of the 3 giants of the province, but 2 of them had come today. The situation was getting more and more chaotic. He had wanted to save Yi Yao and then take the fragment of the divine stone of the Great Path with him. But now it seemed unlikely. Oh? Isn't this the young master of Innocence Valley? Why is he hanging so high? Han Ichuan looked at Shintu Etienne, who was pinned to the mountain wall, and did not hide his gloating smile as he spoke sarcastically. Shintu Etienne was infuriated. At this moment, he really wished that he could just die. Han Ichuan ignored the other party's angry gaze and swaggered to the edge of the giant monument. He hung one leg on the edge of the wall, and his attitude was frivolous. Which hero has transformed into a divine body? Why don't you step forward and let me have a look? Han Ichuan's gaze swept across the people from Mount Kunliu and the mysterious ice sect. His attention lingered on Chu Hen, Yi Yao, and Luo Mingshang for a few seconds, the team from Mount Kunliu? They have produced quite a few talents. Before Chu Hen could respond, Lei Jixin's indifferent voice sounded. Hani Chuan, please move aside. This fragment of the divine stone of the Great Path belongs to your Thunder Saint Palace? Hani Chuan chuckled and said, By the way, why are you alone? Where's Lei Mingho? That guy stabbed me last time. I still need to get him to pay me back. Lei Mingho. Everyone's hearts trembled. Everyone knew that Thunder Saint Palace had developed rapidly in recent years, and had already reached the same level as the top sect in the province, the Thousand Worlds sect in the area of Fresh Blood. They even surpassed the Thousand Worlds sect. Two monstrous geniuses with a divine body appeared in Thunder Saint Palace. One was Lei Jixin, and the other was Lei Mingho. You can't beat him. Lei Jixin's tone was calm as she said this directly. Han Ichuan rubbed his nose and smiled. That's not for sure. Don't be too sure about everything. It's not like your Thunder Saint Palace has a divine body. The two of them spoke as if they didn't exist. Lei Jixin smiled. Since you're so confident, then go find him. There's no need to talk nonsense here. Aren't I asking you where Lei Mingho is? You know it yourself. Why ask me? Han Ichuan looked like he understood. He shook his finger and said casually, Xian Kshetra Sky Region, Xian Kshetra Sky Region? Everyone's eyes lit up. Those in the know knew that it was the most dangerous forbidden area in the ancient desolate heaven region. Han Ichuan continued, I knew it. Isn't your Thunder Saint Palace here for the Xian Kshetra Sky Region's heart of divine lightning? You talk too much. Lei Jixin's eyes flashed with coldness. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener thought it. The people from Mount Kunlu, the Profound Ice Sect, and the Wu Wang Valley were all curious about the profound killer divine lightning heart. Chu Hen was also thinking about it. Heart of divine lightning? What was that? Even the Thunder Saint Palace, a powerhouse of a province, valued it so much? Han Ichuan didn't care about Lei Jixin's cold stare. Although the palace of Jiuhua was slightly weaker than the Thunder Saint Palace, it wasn't to the extent that he was afraid of it. If they really fought, the palace of Jiuhua wasn't afraid. The heart of the Black Killer Divine Thunder is not easy to obtain. There are too many people eyeing this divine object. As he spoke, Han Ichuan actually sighed again. This is really unfair. Why can't our sects be led by Sky Profound Realm Elders? Otherwise, if your Thunder Saint Palace sent 8 or 10 Sky Profound Realm experts over, wouldn't the Black Killer Divine Thunder be as easy as pie? Before he finished speaking, a cold current surged around the people from the Thunder Saint Palace. Han Ichuan was obviously deliberately revealing all this information. He was simply looking for trouble. The ancient desolate heaven region opened once every 1,000 years. Everyone from each sect had to use the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow Order as a pass. However, there was a rule that few people knew about. In order to make up for the disparity between the forces in the Victory East State, the leaders of the top 10 forces in the province would be restricted. The top 10 forces could only send a powerhouse with a cultivation base at the Profound Sky Realm or above to lead the team. Otherwise, the other sects and clans would not be able to survive at all. This kind of restriction was very necessary. As for the top 3 forces in the province, the restriction was even greater. They could only send their younger disciples. Elder-level figures were not allowed to participate at all. Otherwise, if an elder with a terrifying cultivation base came, the second and third-rate forces would all have to eat their dust. Naturally, the main purpose of the ancient desolate heaven region was to be a place for the younger generation to grow. Apart from the top 3 forces, the other 7 sects were also following suit. They only allowed their younger disciples to enter the ancient desolate heaven region and did not allow their elders to lead the team. Although this would greatly increase the danger, it could also strengthen the disciples' growth in all aspects. In comparison, the top sects valued the latter more. Fresh blood was the most important thing. Only when geniuses fought could they become even more monstrous. As for those geniuses who could only be protected by the elders of the sect, they were no different from trash. This was also why after Mount Kuan Lu's team got rid of the blood refining hall, the demon-slaying hall master let Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan lead the team and did not follow them. The demon-slaying hall master was very clear about this. Whether Chu Hen was a dragon or a worm, it all depended on him. But then again, he thought about it. Even though the ancient desolate heaven region restricted the top 10 forces in the province, the overall quality of the younger generation was strong, the average cultivation base was high, and they had a lot of information. Due to many important factors, they were still the dominant force in the ancient desolate heaven region. After all, in the eyes of the world, people like Lei Mingho and Han Ichuan were not inferior to any of the elders who led the team. Thousand World Sect, Thunder Saint Palace, Jiuhua Palace. Just these few words were enough to make people feel endless respect and fear. However, there weren't many people who actually knew about these restrictions. In most people's eyes, the top 10 forces did not want to send too many elders to lead the team. After all, to them, the monstrous geniuses in their sect were enough to pass all the tests in the ancient desolate heaven region. But now Han Ichuan had directly dug out his old secret. This would more or less increase the confidence of the other forces. Perhaps it would affect the Thunder Saint Palace's plan. Even though the people of the Thunder Saint Palace were dissatisfied, Lei Jixin's emotions did not change much. She was still calmly looking at Han Ichuan, who was on top of the great Tao Divine Stone. "Are you done? You're still so calm?" Han Ichuan was also slightly surprised. He had to admit that this woman was really arrogant. She did not take others seriously at all. It seemed like the Thunder Saint Palace was determined to succeed this time. I'm done." Before the last word could be uttered, a shocking and majestic aura suddenly surged down. Everyone's hearts jumped. They looked up and saw a golden shockwave piercing through the sky like a meteor. It headed straight for Han Ichuan's position. Rumble! Thunder roared as if an army of thousands of men and horses was approaching. Following that, a clear and melodious voice that was filled with anger resounded. "Han Ichuan, I finally found you, the bastard who stole from me." This voice? Everyone from the Aishian sect and Mount Kunliu was shocked.